Hello, everyone. Welcome to ZaranTech. Did you know that more than 99% of the world's largest companies use SAP solutions to manage their business operations? That's why SAP skills are in high demand across industries today. Here, we are going to explore SAP for Beginners. SAP stands for Systems, Applications, and Products in Data Processing. It is a business software that helps companies manage important activities such as finance, sales, purchasing, human resources, and supply chain operations in one system. SAP is trusted by organizations around the world because it helps improve productivity, reduce manual work, and support better business decisions. As more companies adopt digital technologies, the demand for SAP professionals continues to grow. In this course, you will learn the fundamentals of SAP, understand its key modules, explore how businesses use SAP in daily operations, and discover the career opportunities available in the SAP ecosystem. Let's dive in. Hey there! Want to learn SAP and start your career in the SAP world? Our SAP for Beginners course is here to help. You can learn at your own pace on our platform. In this course, you'll learn all about SAP. It's a popular business software that helps companies manage their daily work, data, and business processes. Our course covers everything you need to know, from basic concepts to important SAP functions. It's designed by experts to make learning easy and simple. Your trainers are experienced professionals who have worked with SAP for many years. They're here to guide you and help answer your questions. And don't just take our word for it. Our learners enjoy the course and find the training very useful. People from different backgrounds have used this course to build SAP knowledge and improve their career opportunities. Best part? It is budget-friendly. This great chance to learn SAP is available at an affordable price. Ready to start your SAP journey? Enroll in our course today. And for more details, visit ZaranTech website.
Hi everyone, good day. Welcome to the first session on SAP Beginners Guide. So this particular session will be intended for you all who will be starting your SAP career and you would like to know more about SAP. So this is where we will have an introduction of just smaller chunks of topics being covered of what is SAP, how it looks, and what it is consisting of, so that you will get to know the gist of SAP. That's the main core intent of this particular course. Okay. So this will be applicable for anyone or any graduates, or like you have a BTech graduate or a BTech graduate or a MBA graduate or a BBA graduate, right? So all that takes you is to the knowledge of core knowledge of SAP that is required, and maybe a certification later. So to enter into the world of SAP. So in order to help you or enlighten you with what is SAP and how it looks for the beginners, just to understand, we are preparing this course. And then later on you'll have other courses as well into deep dive into specific business processes or specific lines of operations of business or specific modules in SAP that we have. Okay. All we have today is now that we are covering the particular topic called introduction to SAP. So this would be more of a theory course in the beginning team. So in later stages we'll see more of SAP screen, but initially it would be more of a theory where you will understand what is SAP, why is SAP called SAP, right? The background of SAP basically. I will be covering all these topics in smaller chunks in different videos, because one video at a stretch might not be feasible for you to understand. That's why it will be in chunks. Okay, right. Thank you. So the topic today is introduction to SAP. And then the next step that you see is about the slide you see is disclaimer. So what's the agenda for today? So we have the complete agenda written in this particular deck, but this is not the entire agenda for today. So basically, what are we going to cover in this particular deck or PPT that you see is overview of SAP, then introduction to SAP ERP, SAP's roles in enterprise management, SAP's products, modules, basis module, and then roles and responsibilities for basis consultants and GUI. So this would be a lengthy slide where we will chunk down and then cover the topics together. So first we start with the very basics of introduction. Okay. That's overview of SAP. So in the overview of SAP, what are we going to see is first, what is SAP? SAP is never called as SAP in SAP world. Okay. So the very first thing that anyone notice is if you start calling it as SAP, then the people will know that you are an outsider to this market, to this software. Okay. So remember always it's SAP, and SAP stands for Systems, Applications and Products in Data Processing. I repeat, SAP stands for Systems, Applications and Products in Data Processing. So this is the definition. And SAP by definition is also the name of an ERP software. Okay. And it's also the name of the company as well. So what is SAP? SAP is a kind of ERP tool, and SAP itself is the name of the company. So SAP is a software and its company's name is SAP. Like you see Oracle, okay, which we all know, or Microsoft, right? Like that. So basically what is ERP and what how is ERP functioning and all we will see in the further slides. But for now, you understood that SAP is a company and SAP is itself a tool which will be used in the market. And the definition of SAP is systems, applications, and products in data processing. Next, SAP Software is a European multinational company founded in 1972 by five persons who work together. So they are these guys: Wellenruther, Hope, Hector, Plattner, and Shira. So these are the guys, five people who has worked together to create this particular software, and it's being believed with the information that we have over the internet that these five people are the were the ex employees of the multinational company called IBM, in which they have worked and came out and created this software called SAP in 1972. So basically, this particular SAP software is developed or will help or is developed to as a software solution to manage particularly all the business operations and customer relationships of the companies. So what is the use of this SAP software, or why it is being invented by these guys? To primarily focusing on managing the business operations and customer relationships. Okay. Next, we move on to the next slide. We can see here overview of SAP. So in the if we see the history of SAP, right, in the overview, so this is how it's evolved from 1972, okay, to 2022. So let's assume we are in 2026, but still we covered till 2022. Don't worry. So founded in Germany by five former IBM employees. So they are the ex IBM employees who worked in IBM but came out and and worked on it, and they founded it. Then in 1979, after they founded it in 1979, SAP releases its first enterprise resource planning system for financial accounting. So the first solution that SAP as a software is providing the IT support for financial accounting. That means the for finance business processes. Then the company in 1982, then the company is expanded to United States, offering and opening an office in Pennsylvania. So that means from 1979, after the office is being opened in Germany and Europe, and then they moved to US in 1982. And in 1986, the company goes public with an initial public offering on the Frankfurt and Stuttgart stock exchanges. So basically, since this is a German-based company, they have grown in for example, you see in 15 years so good that they have an IPO offering as well done, where the particularly in the different stock exchanges in Germany. And then in 1992, they have given their first three system architecture. You see, SAP uses its first client or server architecture for its three system. Okay, what is R3? It's a three-layer architecture system that SAP used to have in before, I would say 10 years before or 5 years before, and even still it exists, but all new clients are coming into the newer architectures, which we will deep dive. Don't worry about it. Okay. And in 1999, the company launches mysap.com, an e-business platform designed to integrate various business processes. Okay. So next is basically this is an extra offering that SAP has given. So like this, SAP is offering one by one new offerings. For example, you see in 2010, they acquire Sybase, a database and mobile software company. So acquisitions are common, or mergers and acquisitions are common in business world, right? Where you will see different companies acquire different companies where they have a capability to develop particular solutions which is required for their company. And the next is here you see in 2020, SAP announced a restructuring plan with focus on cloud-based offerings and streamlining its workforce. So SAP has came up with different versions in between in among all the years. Okay, So, but whereas in 2020, its focus is on more on cloud. And now you see in 2022 and more on, now there are more scenarios on settlement management, central finance and handling, etc. is being focused. So basically what's happening is SAP is developing. SAP is developing in such a way, okay, where it's catering to the needs of the growing business needs. So SAP has evolved over the years like this, and it will be helpful for the companies who operate on SAP to easily understand. Okay, next. So even in this is one way of overview we have seen in the history, right? Where we have seen over the years how this legal growth has gone, or the how companies ambitious growth has become. Whereas if we go now in the history, where you will see in 1972 it started an office. 1973 they started SAP R1. In 1979 they have come up with R2, and they have in 1992 they come up with SAP R3, and then 2004 they have Business One, ERP, NetWeaver, and in 2005 they have SAP ERP with NetWeaver. So basically what's happening is they are getting evolved as and when that's required. And for example, the R3 is the latest architecture after 1992 that's being used, is the three-layer architecture that we have in SAP, which is the database layer, which is the database layer, and then the backend layer, and then the front end layer where you can work with. Okay. So this is how the evolution is happening, which you need not to remember this because nobody is going to question how this happens and all. So, but this is for your for your understanding purpose. We are saying that this is how it works. Okay, perfect. Now next is what we have is, so you see after 2000 through till 2005 it's written here. After 2005 what's it is done. So after 2005 you have 2006 some more versions came. 2009 you have some more options coming up. 2011 you have SAP S4 HANA. SAP HANA introduced. In 2015 SAP S4 HANA is introduced. So 2011, the latest thing is HANA is a database, and 2015 S4 HANA is a, basically what we say is database with a new SAP system being evolved, because this is the one which is being widely used today, S4 HANA. This is very important as well to understand. Okay, next. So now what we have seen is very basic introduction about SAP, like in the overview, what is SAP, and then a history of SAP, how it evolved, right? Now what we are going to see is about ERP. Now the question is, what is ERP? ERP means, ERP is abbreviated as Enterprise Resource Planning. Okay, ERP is abbreviated as Enterprise Resource Planning, is a software that is built to organizations belonging to different sectors, regardless of size and strength. That means for the day-to-day business of. Hi everyone, good day. Welcome to the first session on SAP Beginners Guide. So this particular session will be intended for you all who will be starting your SAP career and you would like to know more about SAP. So this is where we will have an introduction of just smaller chunks of topics being covered of what is SAP, how it looks, and what it is consisting of, so that you will get to know the gist of SAP. That's the main core intent of this particular course. Okay. So this will be applicable for anyone or any graduates, or like you have a BTech graduate or a BTech graduate or a MBA graduate or a BBA graduate, right? So all that takes you is to the knowledge of core knowledge of SAP that is required, and maybe a certification later, so to enter into the world of SAP. So in order to help you or enlighten you with what is SAP and how it looks for the beginners, just to understand, we are preparing this course. And then later on you'll have other courses as well into deep dive into specific business processes or specific lines of operations of business or specific modules in SAP that we have. Okay, all we have today is now that we are covering the particular topic called Introduction to SAP. So this would be more of a theory course in the beginning team. So in later stages we'll see more of SAP screen, but initially it would be more of a theory where you will understand what is SAP, why is SAP called SAP, right? The background of SAP basically. Okay, and we will be covering excuse me, I will be covering all these topics in smaller chunks in different videos, because one video at a stretch might not be feasible for you to understand. That's why it will be in chunks. Okay, right. Thank you. So the topic today is Introduction to SAP, and then the next step that you see is about the slide you see is disclaimer, where we will have particularly a disclaimer about this particular slides being used, or this particular codes being used outside of copyrights laws permitted by ZaranTech. Okay, so you are supposed to not reproduce or not store or introduce into any retrieval system which is not approved. Okay, so this is pure confidential and intellectual property of ZaranTech as a company that you need to be aware of. Next. So what's the agenda for today? So we have the complete agenda written in this particular deck, but this is not the entire agenda for today. So basically, what are we going to cover in this particular deck or PPT that you see is overview of SAP, then introduction to SAP ERP, SAP's roles in enterprise management, SAP's products, modules, basis module, and then roles and responsibilities for basis consultants and GUI. So this would be a lengthy slide where we will chunk down and then cover the topics together. So first we start with the very basics of introduction. Okay, that's overview of SAP. So in the overview of SAP, what are we going to see is first, what is SAP? SAP is never called as SAP in SAP world. Okay, so the very first thing that anyone notice is if you start calling it as SAP, then the people will know that you are an outsider to this market, to this software. Okay, so remember always it's SAP, and SAP stands for Systems, Applications, and Products in Data Processing. I repeat, SAP stands for Systems, Applications, and Products in Data Processing. So this is the definition. And SAP by definition is also the name of an ERP software. Okay. And it's also the name of the company as well. So what is SAP? SAP is a kind of ERP tool, and SAP itself is the name of the company. So SAP is a software and its company's name is SAP. Like you see Oracle, okay, which we all know, or Microsoft, right? Like that. So basically, what is ERP and how is ERP functioning and all, we will see in the further slides. But for now, you understood that SAP is a company and SAP is itself a tool which will be used in the market. And the definition of SAP is systems, applications, and products in data processing. Next, SAP Software is a European multinational company founded in 1972 by five persons who work together. So they are these guys: Wellenruther, Hope, Hector, Plattner, and Shira. So these are the guys, five people who has worked together to create this particular software, and it's being believed with the information that we have over the internet that these five people are were the ex-employees of the multinational company called IBM, in which they have worked and came out and created this software called SAP in 1972. So basically, this particular SAP software is developed or will help or is developed to as a software solution to manage particularly all the business operations and customer relationships of the companies. So what is the use of this SAP software, or why it is being invented by these guys? To primarily focusing on managing the business operations and customer relationships. Okay. Next, we move on to the next slide. We can see here overview of SAP. So if we see the history of SAP, right, in the overview, so this is how it's evolved from 1972, okay, to 2022. So let's assume we are in 2026, but still we covered till 2022. Don't worry. So founded in Germany by five former IBM employees. So they are the ex IBM employees who worked in IBM but they came out and and worked on it, and they founded it. Then in 1979, after they founded it in 1979, SAP releases its first enterprise resource planning system for financial accounting. So the first solution that SAP as a software is providing the IT support for financial accounting. That means the finance business processes. Then the company in 1982, then the company is expanded to United States, offering and opening an office in Pennsylvania. So that means from 1979, after the office is being opened in Germany and Europe, and then they moved to US in 1982. And in 1986, the company goes public with an initial public offering on the Frankfurt and Stuttgart stock exchanges. So basically, since this is a German-based company, they have grown in for example, you see in 15 years so good that they have an IPO offering as well done, where the particularly in the different stock exchanges in Germany. And then in 1992, they have given their first three system architecture. You see, SAP introduces its first client or server architecture for its three system. Okay, what is R3? It's a three-layer architecture system that SAP used to have in before, I would say 10 years before or 5 years before, and even still it exists, but all new clients are coming into the newer architectures, which we will deep dive. Don't worry about it. Okay. And in 1999, the company launches mysap.com, an e-business platform designed to integrate various business processes. Okay. So next is basically this is an extra offering that SAP has given. So like this, SAP is offering one by one new offerings. For example, you see in 2010, they acquire Sybase, a database and mobile software company. So acquisitions are common, or mergers and acquisitions are common in business world, right? Where you will see different companies acquire different companies where they have a capability to develop particular solutions which is required for their company. And the next is here you see in 2020, SAP announced a restructuring plan with focus on cloud-based offerings and streamlining its workforce. So SAP has came up with different versions in between in among all the years, okay? So, but whereas in 2020, its focus is on more on cloud, and now you see in 2022 and more on, now there are more scenarios on settlement management, central finance, and handling, etc. is being focused. So basically, what's happening is SAP is developing. SAP is developing in such a way, okay, where it's catering to the needs of the growing business needs. So SAP has evolved over the years like this, and it will be helpful for the companies who operate on SAP to easily understand. Okay, next. So even in this is one way of overview we have seen in the history, right? Where we have seen over the years how this legal growth has gone, or the how companies ambitious growth has become. Whereas if we go now in the history, where you will see in 1972 it started an office. 1973 they started SAP R1. In 1979 they have come up with R2, and they have in 1992 they came up with SAP R3, and then 2004 they have Business One, ERP, NetWeaver, and in 2005 they have you see SAP ERP with NetWeaver. So basically what's happening is they are getting evolved as and when that's required. And for example, the R3 is the latest architecture after 1992 that's being used, is the three-layer architecture that we have in SAP, which is the database layer, which is the database layer, and then the backend layer, and then the front end layer where you can work with. Okay. So this is how the evolution is happening, which you need not to remember this because nobody is going to question how this happens and all. So, but this is for your for your understanding purpose. We are saying that this is how it works. Okay, perfect. Now next is what we have is, so you see after 2000 through till 2005 it's written here. After 2005 what's it is done. So after 2005 you have 2006 some more versions came. 2009 you have some more options coming up. 2011 you have SAP S4 HANA. SAP HANA introduced, and 2015 SAP S4 HANA is introduced. So 2011, the latest thing is HANA is a database, and 2015 S4 HANA is a, basically what we say is database with a new SAP system being evolved, because this is the one which is being widely used today, S4 HANA. This is very important as well to understand. Okay, next. So now what we have seen is very basic introduction about SAP, like in the overview, what is SAP, and then history of SAP, how it evolved, right? Now what we are going to see is about ERP. Now the question is, what is ERP? ERP means, ERP is abbreviated as Enterprise Resource Planning. Okay, ERP is abbreviated as Enterprise Resource Planning, is a software that is built to organizations belonging to different sectors, regardless of size and strength. That means for the day-to-day business operations of any company, right, of different sizes, there would be an automation or software bookkeeping system that is required, for which the ERP segment of softwares are created. For example, if you see Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram is a social media platform, right? They all belong to the social media platforms content. Whereas SAP, Oracle, and Infor, etc., these all the softwares or platforms that belong to the ERP category of the category. That means, for any companies to operate, they need different sets of data to be maintained. Those sets of data to be maintained in IT systems will be leveraging the ERP systems. So SAP is also an ERP system. Excuse me. Then you see what is ERP. Here you will see what are the different segments that or the business process that ERP softwares will support. So for example, if you see the ERP software supports manufacturing, production of any materials, right? ERP supports service project management. That means how much the cost and how much the resource planning has to be done. ERP maintains service management. Any service process that you have for the customers you offer, that can be maintained. ERP offers sales and marketing, all the sales and marketing of your company. ERP offers human resource management. That means all your employee relations, salaries, maintenance, leaves, work, etc. can be maintained. ERP maintains asset management. All the fixed assets, moved, immovable assets that your company has, that has to be kept in for bookkeeping record, can be maintained. ERP offers big data analytics, business intelligence, and the ERP for primarily gives financial management, where all your finances, like when all the inflow and outflow, legalities, profit and loss, everything to be maintained here. And ERP offers the supply chain management, which is your end-to-end supply chain process can also be managed. And the new age tools like Internet of Things and customer relationship management, everything can also be done. So basically, this is what you can see, that ERP can manage everything together. All the business processes, all the sub lines of business, all the service verticals of a company. So all of them can be managed. Moving on. So what is this ERP consisting of or can do? So ERP package is used to support and integrate every functional area of business process, such as procurement of goods and services, right? Every functional area of business process. For example, you have your procurement of goods and services in your company. You have finance, you have accountings, you have general, you have human resource, you have manufacturing. You will have other modules as well, like accounting, human resource, manufacturing, right? And then production planning, logistics and warehouse management as well. So what this means basically is, you see, all the different verticals of your business can be managed and maintained. So if I can translate this into a simple example that you know, right? For example, maybe you know a supermarket, or even before below a line of supermarket, that maybe in the Asian countries you see there is something called the kirana store, they call that, is like the grocery store. Okay, that's the Indian version of calling, or maybe the South Asian version of calling the grocery store, very small one, right? So for example, they have 100 kilo, maybe they'll have some 50 kilos of rice at any given point in time, because it's a very small thing and people come and buy in large small quantities. And then after that they have, for example, 100 soaps, or they may have 50 some coke bottles, right? So, and then some flours, cereals, lentils of small quantities, like 10 kilos, 20 kilos, 30 kilos they keep, right? So they keep a wide variety of stock also. But now in this case, for such small shops, what how do they maintain their bookkeeping system? They don't need an ERP software, because they can't run their business in, they can't afford that IT systems. So what do? They will have an bookkeeping system, like how much is purchased, how much is sold, how much is paid. For example, how much of the metals are purchased, how much is left at the month end, and how much is the spoiled one, right? How much is sold. So how much is the profit and loss they'll look at. And if there is one employee in that shop, how much is the salary being given. So, and then the accountings at the year end will be, they're looking at how much of the profit they got after the expenses, so everything together. So this is on the physical bookkeeping system, they'll have it. Whereas if we take a bit higher, like for example, a supermarket, or a bigger grocery store of like considerable size, so then they need to have a computerized billing system to accommodate the RF scanning, barcoding, etc. So they need the warehousing process, right? They need a RF scan to identify the products. Also, then they'll have this particularly the maybe 3 or 4 employees working. So they need to provide salaries. They need to keep a book record, and they need to buy. They see the stock coming in. They need to go the stock or going out, what is being purchased, and then accountings, everything together. So they need a bit of industrialization, where they can have a bit of more software capabilities to run their business. Whereas if we increase more onto the next example, for example, like maybe a Walmart or a Reliance store in India, right? So those are much, or a 7-Eleven in any Asian countries. right? So basically what you see is they are much bigger. They need a proper software that supports their business. For example, how much of the goods are being procured, and then how much of the payment has to be done, and how much of it being sold, and then how much of the accountings finance has to be payments has to done, and accountings has to look for the profit and loss, right? And then the employees management and their salaries, leaves, everything to be where, and then the most importantly logistics and warehouse, right? How much the stock is in warehouse, if is it, which stock is getting spoiled faster, which needs to be sold first, right? The LIFO and FIFO concept we call last in first out and first in first out. So like which one has to be sold? Is it like whatever that first came in has to go out because that will spoil faster? So these kind of every process needs to be in a software to support them to instead of manually doing their business. So this is the point of discussion. I hope you understood it. The anatomy of the annotation or the example that I have given. Okay. So now the point is, if you see, this is one example, but if you talk about a bigger examples, like for example, you have an Volvo company. So Volvo as a bigger company, they have all the aspects. Like they'll have manufacturing, they have production planning because they'll produce goods like trucks, right? So or buses. So they need the goods to be procured. They need the sale of these trucks to be planned, and they need the logistics and warehouse to be done. Okay. Okay. Next is about they'll have huge employee count in across the country. So then you need to have that across the countries, not country, okay, across the countries that has to be managed, right? So this is all and the accountings, profit and loss for each bookkeeping company or the main entity they have to work with. So this is all the process that needs to be digitized so that you can view everything in easily and then you can control. But if you keep hundreds of ledgers and then try, then this business cannot be sustainable. So that is why this ERP tools helps businesses of different scales to digitize their business process and track and report easily the all the business verticals aspects, for example, majorly finance and then other improved aspects like logistics and warehouses as well. So I hope you understood what an ERP covers today. So what is ERP doing, right? Basically, you see this is a line, a series of events that's happening together where basically what happens is there would be planning and execution done in every business process where you will have distribution of manufacturing. You see, then basically it's all cyclic process. For example, you do a marketing, and then what happens is after marketing you will have to have a finance to set up the company for production, then you'll have sales coming in, then for the sales you will have to have the employees working and engineering for the product to before you produce the stock, and materials you buy, so that using that materials you buy then manufacture the product and then you distribute it into the market. So it's a cyclic process that runs where you will buy materials, you will produce a product, and then you sell it and you distribute it, and then you take money finance side, and then the warehouse is operated. So this is how basically you can maintain, I would say. Okay. Next is basically functions. What are the functions of ERP? So that's very important to understand, team. What are the functions of ERP? So the functions of ERP are basically, you see, is the following. The first one starts with supports integrated business processes. Supports integrated business processes. And next, that means all the business processes together can be achieved in one in system. It's not like you have to go to 10 15 different systems where you will have this working. Okay. Next is improves capital planning and execution of strategies. Improves capital planning and execution of strategies. How do you want to have your capital investment working, and then execution has to be done. That can be seen in this. And speeds up decision making with accurate data, because you can have the accurate data of how your business is running, like how much sales you have, how much procurement you have, how much account finance you have, etc. So based on that you can have a speed up of decision making, because based on that if you want to make decisions you can easily do that. Next, expands business network to customers, suppliers and partners. So you have an SAP system like or an ERP system which supports everything, right? Then so what happens is here you see Basically, this expands business network to customers, suppliers, and partners. Where they have the same ERP, then you can connect easily, right? You can transmit the data easily. That's the biggest strength you have. And then identifies risks to strengthen governance. For example, who has to do what in a company? Because I'm not talking about a company like a small unit, guys. We are talking about companies where you have hundreds and thousands of employees, like where you see a Volvo group or a Tata group, right? Where you see this, they'll have a governance to be set, like who has to have access for what, who has to do what. These all can be done also in the ERP tools. So because you have it documented, you have it access controlled, process controlled, right? Then you have see drives long-term profit by growth customer base. So basically, you'll have a growth, long-term growth by in the customer base. Then it gives you a lot of profit as well. This is the benefit that you have. Okay, so this is what the benefits that ERP gives, because it will be a one-stop solution for all your business needs. So moving on, what are the key benefits of ERP? So if you see what are the benefits, because I have told you that ERP can do that, ERP can do this, and all etc. Very good. But what are the benefits that a company will get? So what we have seen in the previous slide is the functions. What can an ERP do? But now what we are going to see here, what is key benefits of ERP? So here you will see that there is a higher productivity from the company side. Okay, because there will be easier way of operations with no need to write bulky physical general ledger books. All you have to do is an computer feeding that you have to do which transactions you are doing, right? And then deeper insights. How is the deeper insights? Basically, you have the all the transactions of your business in one software, where you can go and check, and then you want reports out of it, you can extract, so you understand, and it helps the C-suite employees to take decisions. Accelerated reporting. Since you have all your business transactions in one system, like your purchasing, your sales, your finance, your manufacturing, you can through the different reports that are available in the systems, ERP systems, you bring out, you can have the reporting easier. You need not to make a custom report again manually by yourself. You build the report once in a ERP, then you just execute with the data you need, and it will give the output. Next, lower risk. Okay, what is the risk that we are talking about? So lower risk is basically, I would say, since you have all your business running in one application, there would be a lesser risk, because there would be no bifurcation, no dependencies on multiple people and teams, etc. Okay, next. After this lowest risk point, maybe you can have a question like, okay, what if, since all your businesses are running in one system, what if that system fails? So for that, there is a concept in IT also. You will have the disaster recovery system, you will have an backup system running. So those options will be there, and you will have a cloud environment if you use, then where your data is stored in cloud as well, right? So okay, then simpler IT. Basically, you see, if you have too many systems to accommodate, then it's a problem. Okay. Then there will be a simpler IT system, ecosystem if you build, where you'll have easier maintenance. Then improved agility. Why or how your improved agility will be? Because you will have an handy data always with you. You know how your business is running. You have where it's lacking or where it's growing. So then perfect. You can use it. Okay. So this is what the introduction to ERP. In the introduction to ERP, we are talking about the key benefits. These are the 6 key benefits that we have listed. Okay. Next. So what are the key common ERP modules that we see in the market? So in the common ERP modules that we see is basically, you see, sourcing and procurement, where all the procurement of materials and services will be dealt with, including sourcing, to like which vendor to award the procurement contract, right? Whom do we have the sourcing done, and then procurement also with him or her. And then the other stream that we have is manufacturing, where all the production planning and the manufacturing needs will be decided. Like if you want to manufacture, how you manufacture, what are the sub process that are required, and what are the machinery that is required, and what are the materials that are required to manufacture. All this will be going. Supply chain is basically how the transportation management and process runs. And you will have like sales basically. So sales is basically how you sell your products, how you create sales orders, and how you deliver the goods for which are manufactured by your company. Assets is basically, you'll have, every company will have assets, so how the asset management is done. And then R&D and engineering, so you'll have a specific R&D and engineering team working on the R&D and engineering, that would also be working. Next is finance. So basically, okay, And then services, of course, services is also part of a company, right? Some of the companies will provide services. And then now you see these are the common ERP modules, which you see is not common for every company. It's not mandatory that your company should have every module. Basically, for example, if your company is into complete services, like you don't manufacture anything, then there is no manufacturing, then it's all manufacturing that is not required at all, I would say. So that's how the division is basically. So what are the modules that are required that will be used? And then in the modules also, basically you see every company needs procurement and sales. I repeat, every company needs procurement and sales. So only specific companies need manufacturing where there is something they're manufacturing, and then assets, etc. So not every company will have to use it. In my experience, I have seen very rarely some companies using asset management in ERP modules. So that's a different story altogether. Next. So types of ERP deployment we are calling. So we have two types, which are again mixed into the third type. So total three.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
In this topic, here we are going to discuss about basically the next actions or the next processes of or the next differentiations and definitions in SAP. So, but because if you have to recap what we have discussed so far, right? If you remember, we have discussed about the basics of SAP, how SAP evolved, and what is the definition of SAP, what is ERP, and different types of ERPs we have in the market, and in that different ERPs, how did you manage to have this particular SAP being the market leader and everything, etc. We discussed. So now what are we going to discuss is basically we will be discussing about what is ECC. Okay. So maybe I'll just hide them so that you will be able to see better. So first of all, there is a term called SAP ECC. So what is SAP ECC stands for? SAP ECC stands for SAP ERP core component or the central component, in both the ways you call, okay? ERP central component or ERP core component. SAP ECC is a modular in design, which makes it highly customizable. That means whatever the client wants, that this can be customized. Okay. Next, you can configure SAP ECC to suit your business, to suit your needs in all areas of your business, from finance to HR to logistics. That means ECC is a version of SAP tool which can be used by clients for to run their business processes from including all the departments such as finance, HR, logistics, etc. Also, SAP ECC works with third-party or custom applications like business messaging apps. For example, you have any other business process in your company which needs to be integrated with SAP. For example, you know, right? Whenever the trucks will be loaded in the companies, they'll check the load of the truck, the weight of the truck before loading, empty weight truck weight, and after loading as well, so that they will get to know how much is loaded. So, but that information, empty truck weight has to be coming to SAP. Then how will it come? SAP can't weigh and take that. SAP don't have it. So there would be other softwares which will be maintained, which is something we will check it, right? We will have that weight checked, and then that software will send an data transfer to SAP where the empty weight will be stored, and after that the full weight load also, so that SAP will get to know. So this kind of third-party applications or custom applications integration between SAP and them will be done as well. That's the advantage with SAP. It's not a standalone system. Then SAP ECC has many interactions between components, which makes it flexible but also more complicated. Yes, if you have more interactions with more systems, it's complicated, but the achievement here is that any kind of integration that you can have in the market is possible with SAP. That's the biggest advantage. So, and because one thing that you have to bear in mind in SAP is that all the processes, all the modules will be in one system. That is your procurement, your finance, your your sales, your warehouse, everything will be in one system. So if there is a change in one area, it affects the functions in other areas. Like if there is a purchasing goods is done, then finance will get to know that we have to get an invoice and payment. Whereas if some delivery is for the sales is done to the customer, then we are expecting in cash from the customer. So this kind of integration is there in SAP. SAP is a tightly integrated tool because of and with finance, which is making SAP unique and best in the market, basically. Okay. And because of that, you also have a problem is any upgrades that you do, like for example, the new version of SAP and all. So you have to be very careful that if you're changing in some business process, some step, it will have an impact in the other streams, which is to be cross-checked because you should not disrupt the other functions business because of your changes. Like if there is any change done in finance, then if it's an impact in procurement and sales, is to be checked how it works. Or if there is an impact in for example production planning, then it will have impact on both procurement, sales, warehouse, finance. So that is also to be checked. This applies even to migration of your data as well, team. That's the big thing. So if you are migrating any master data from any systems, for example, if SAP has to run and before SAP you have another application, that application master data should be bringing into this system, so it should work. So even that also we need to be make sure, because every data, every test thing is tightly integrated in SAP. So it should be very carefully orchestrated. It's not like you work on specific thing, but still there is an impact on other streams that you need to be aware of. But this ECC, right? You understood ERP central component or ERP core component. This is the version of SAP that's been used from very, very long years. Next is after SAP ECC, there are a lot of versions in SAP ECC that has come up. These versions of ECC has evolved over the period of time, but after a certain period of time, SAP came up with a concept called S4 HANA. So SAP ECC, there are a lot of versions like SAP ECC version 4, version 6, EHP 6, etc. EHP means enhancement package. But after that, SAP has tried forward given a version called SAP S4 HANA in 2015. So what is S4 HANA? Suite for HANA. It's SAP's abbreviation is Suite for HANA is the SAP's newest generation of ERP software, which SAP has developed in very, very good way and given, which works both on-premise and cloud. This SAP S4 version will work both on-premise and cloud, and it uses technologies like AI, machine learning, automation to improve business efficiency and speed. That's the biggest advantage. You can integrate your AI, you can integrate your machine learning, you can have your automation also done in on this, basically, which helps to increase your business efficiency and speed. So basically, S4 HANA is the latest version of SAP that you have, which is like which looks very good into work and very, how do we say, very efficient in functioning in the system processing perspective, right? And how it helps or what and benefits you'll have to on a high level. If you have to discuss, you will see, like for example, there will be personalized insights, like each user can have personalized insights like how they want to see. And they'll also have like integrated processes. For example, you have an integrated process with all the streams that you can work with. And even you have embedded cybersecurity, which is very need of the day today, which is the need of the day process, right? Okay, so that's the thing. Next is basically there are two different versions we have seen, right? ECC and S4 HANA. S4 HANA is the latest thing which you will learn now, because ECC there. But and yeah, good question. What is the difference between ECC and S4? Eventually we will see that. But S4 HANA is the latest, and there are good amount of changes, but that's not like your Android version, maybe older version to new version kind of upgrades, which will have more upgrades and details. But it's not like something whole different universe you will be seeing in S4. Okay. So that's about ECC. That's about S4. And now coming to the differences between ECC and S4, if you see, right? What are the differences that you have between ECC and S4? In ECC supports multiple databases, like you want an DB2 database, Oracle database, SQL Server, or SAP MaxDB. Any database can be used on ECC. Whenever you have SAP ECC or purchase from SAP, you can have any database which you want, you can connect. But with SAP S4 HANA, S4 HANA runs exclusively on HANA database, which is built by SAP itself. So before bringing SAP S4 HANA system, SAP has built a database called HANA by name itself, it's called HANA. So they kept the name of the database and then that using that database, which they call it as like a very powerful database where the column-based structure of data finding is easy and all etc. But using that, they have built a system called SAP S4 HANA, which works on S4 SAP HANA database only. Okay, there where SAP claims that all the reportings can be done easily and the processing of the functions will be faster. And then deployment options. Deployment options basically it's primarily on-premise limited hosted cloud. So mostly it was always on-premise earlier days, SAP ECC days. But with S4 HANA, you have options. It can be on-premise or it can be public cloud, private cloud, hosted and hybrid deployments, anything. SAP gives all the flexibilities with S4 HANA where you can have on-premise or public or private or hosted or hybrid also. Okay, next. Here you can see user experience. From a user experience perspective, how this ECC and S4 difference. In user difference perspective, you see SAP uses GUI, graphic user interface with limited Fiori apps. So SAP used to have you have an interface called SAP GUI we call, where that's the normal interface where users log in and work. But where a very limited amount of portals and all. SAP needs a setup, log on pad, and then that setup SAP will open and then you need to work. But with S4 HANA, what it gave is there is something called SAP Fiori. Fiori is a web-based tool which SAP says that you can use your SAP from even a mobile or a tablet or your laptop or computer as well. So this is very powerful option that SAP has given where you don't need any laptop system computer setup to be done unlike ECC, because in ECC you need a computer which is compatible where the ECC has to be installed and then logon pad used to use. But in S4 HANA, it's just a portal that SAP gives. Okay, in that portal you can log in and use it. So this portal is basically modern, responsive and device friendly, which is beneficial for us. Okay. Next, advanced functions. So advanced functions, in this advanced functions, basically, you will see in ERP, this advanced functions like or the tech integrations, etc. are a bit less. I don't say it's not there, okay? ECC also used to have a very good and robust integration, very good options that SAP gave. But now basically there is this thing like in S4 HANA, it integrates with it itself. S4 HANA system itself is having embedded analytics, which is like very good option that SAP gave. And that means you will have analytics apps and analytics reports available standard out of the box, which is something very good thing which you can use across. And next is about RPA, robotic process automation, and then machine learning, AI, and then SAP. All these things together, SAP gave something called SAP Copilot. It's like ChatGPT for SAP, or you can call it basically your SAP ChatGPT or SAP Microsoft Copilot, right? So like that, SAP Copilot is integrated. So this is how it's looking good or better. SAP S4 HANA is looking user friendly in terms of business feasibility. Also, it's good. Architecture. From an architecture perspective, there is a three-tier traditional ERP model where I said, right, there is an database and application presentation layer concept that we have in SAP ECC. But here it's not the case in SAP S4 HANA. In SAP S4 HANA, you have something like a re-engineered real-time processing and modern capabilities option where you will get to see how to use this S4 HANA system in a useful manner. Okay, so this is the differences between ECC and S4 system. So ECC and S4 is basically the biggest differences between ECC and S4 is the flexibility, usability, etc. and all. Next, what are the new features in S4 HANA that we get, right? For example, in S4 HANA, of course, since it's a new version, right? So what is the benefits that we have? Of course, there are good benefits. For example, like there is this AC doka is a table. Of course, you don't understand now, but I'll just quickly give an overview where you see there is a good universal journal financial accounting option that SAP has given in a good way. And then you have the other option is MatDog inventory management. Inventory management wise, how to look after the inventory data at one place is something that we have seen as a good one. And then SAP HANA database. In the HANA database, basically what helps or benefits we have in HANA database, right? Those things can also be checked. And advanced ATP, right? Basically, advanced ATP is basically like how the availability to promise how the stock availability to promise can be done in SAP. That concept is also something SAP has developed and given. And global trade services, basically global trade services is how the global import export process that you need to use. And FSCM is basically financial supply chain management, credit management that you have. Okay. And then basically the next thing is that you see extended warehouse management. SAP has given an extended warehouse management concept where SAP WM is not the basic warehouse management, it's an extended warehouse management which is integrated or part of the SAP system or ecosystem itself, where you can have the transaction smooth or the data movement easier. Okay, that's one more option. Okay. Then of course you see something called revenue accounting and reporting is something SAP has given. And then you have other options also like SAP Fiori user interface. Like I said, right, there is something called Fiori browser based experience which SAP gives, which is very good for you to understand and use, so that it helps you easily access your SAP system anywhere. That's a big advantage. Okay. Next, benefits of moving to S4 HANA. So but for example, if you want to move from ECC to S4, if you move out from ACC to S4 HANA, there are bigger benefits is what SAP claims, for example. And what are those? If you see in 2021, 72% of business said that the biggest benefit of S4 HANA was improved efficiency. So followed by greater satisfaction, 61%. So that means basically there is a lot of improved efficiency, right? Just give me a second. Okay. So this is the biggest advantage, guys. Basically what happens is, you see there is a better integration with SAP products than earlier. It's not like you have better, earlier it was bad. So there is a better integration between products and lower costs, such as lower operational and ownership costs. That's the biggest advantage. So basically what's happening is, there is how do we say that? So if you get any product, right, how much cost operationally it is important. For example, if you get a vacuum cleaner at home, how much is the operational cost, like how much electricity it is consuming. So in that terms, there SAP always says there is a always less total cost of ownership for this product. That's what SAP says. Okay, that's the thing. Next is basically, what do we say? A smaller database footprint due to simplified data models. Okay, a smaller database footprint due to simplified data models. You don't have the large IT footprint to be done. And then automated processes improving productivity and performance. There is like any chance of automation, SAP is doing the automation. So that what happens is, you'll have a option of having the improved productivity and faster and more intelligent decision making, because based on the, if you have more improved automated process, then you get the data in real time, which will help you to make the decisions easily. And of course, when the decision making is easier, the process is automated, less carbon footprint, or right, less IT systems, and then low operational costs, obviously there is a high overall profits together. That's how everything is integrated together, team. So that's where SAP is claiming that it benefits your business. So that's where you need to have the particularly SAP S4HANA is trending in the market. Then moving on, benefits of you moving to S4HANA. So for example, you see how much. So improved process efficiency, 72% process efficiencies. So how is it 72% process efficiencies? Basically, when you talk about the automation that is in place, or for example, then any integrations that needs to happen with SAP with any interfacing concepts, like you have an API to connect, or you have an queues to connect. So all of these market integrations with any third party can be done. So all of this leads to the process efficiency. And next is, you see SAP claims 61% greater user and business satisfaction. This is the biggest thing. So users used to have a bulky system, and they log in and they try to remember the transaction codes in ECC. In ECC, every transaction needs a transaction code. Create purchase order, there is a code ME21. Create sales order, there is a transaction code VA01. But what happens in S4 HANA? You don't need to remember them. You want to create purchase order, you type as create purchase order. So it will give you the app, and then in the app, what details you need to give, you give, and that's easy. So because of this, there's a lot of greater user and business satisfaction in this. Okay. And better integrations with other SAP products, which I said, right? It's also a good thing. And minimize downtime during migration. So you can have a less downtime in the IT system, so that it's better for your business. So this is the one more set of benefits that you have when you migrate to S4. So now coming to what is the architecture for S4 HANA. So for example, if you see the core components, basically this is how it looks. In-memory computing engine, there is an in-memory computing engine in this S4 system. It has a modern design with Fiori user experience, okay, that you will see in the later class, how Fiori looks and works. And there is advanced analytics and real-time data processing, which is also something you will see in the next class, because there we will start the system. Okay, so these are all the benefits that you have, or so it's a core component, but how it helps you will see. So for example, if you see the definition of in-memory computing engine, SAP HANA database, the core of S4 HANA, right, is an in-memory engine that enables lightning fast data processing. So crucial for real-time analytics and decision making. So basically, this database is having an in-memory computing engine process, which will help you to find the data in the fastest way possible. And what helps you, what kind of help you get with it? For example, you want to see the orders that are, say, purchase orders that are created in last 1 month, but are delayed. The stock is delayed till now because the stock is did not received, which is supposed to be received. You want to see it. So you have an app called Monitor Purchase Order Items. You go, you input the dates, and the purchase orders will be selected, and then you select a criteria not delivered. So you will get to know the purchase orders created in last 1 month which are not delivered. With a simple click of 2-3 buttons, you get the report. Then you get to know, okay, this is what is pending. You call the vendor and you ask it, right? So this kind of real-time analytics with the reporting tools will be easy. And what is making it easy? This HANA in-memory computing engine in the database. I hope you understood it. Next, its speed and efficiency enhances cloud security by enabling quicker threat detection and response. Of course, when it's quicker and speedy, to from the security perspective also, you will not have any delays or lags where there would not be any dangerous activities happening in between this lag times. Okay. Next, SAP cloud migration further boosts performance and security, essential as cyber threats grow more advanced. So SAP cloud migration further boosts performance and security, which is a cyber threat grow is something that you can reduce it. Next, modern Fiori design. So what is modern Fiori design? So the modern Fiori design works like if Fiori UX in S4HANA brings a clean, intuitive interface that improves stability, improves usability and efficiency. Beyond aesthetics, it enhances accessibility to security policies, reducing user errors. Okay. So what happens is, this is a clean, intuitive interface. That means it's a very good interface. It's very simple. Like once you get user training, that would be very easy to understand. Which if is like it, the usability increases the efficiency of the worker, right, who works on it. So and then there is security errors, etc. also redundant because of this clean UI. And next is about advanced analytics and real-time processing. This is the very important thing SAP processes as well, and SAP what we say is marketing big on this. So what is that? Advanced analytics and real-time processing. The advanced processing capabilities of S4 HANA set in apart from in the realm of enterprise resource planning. So thanks to its ability to handle complex computations and analytics in real time. So how much of the data you may have, you just give the inputs and then it will find in the fastest way and then it gives back. So because we are not talking about some 10 or 100 or 1000 records, right? In real business, you'll have thousands of records usually, or when with select criteria, you will have hundreds of records. So it has to apply that logic in the background and it has to find and give you output in a fraction of seconds. This is the real power of analytics or the real-time data processing that SAP is providing, which I have seen and you will also see in the coming future, okay, in these classes. SAP provides business with insights that were previously unattainable. This is particularly beneficial for security teams who rely on real-time data to identify and remediate cyber threats. Further, the integration of advanced analytics in S4HANA improves risk management and has established quantitative benchmarks for security. So any security concern that you have, with the amount of analytics that you have, you can look and work easily, is what SAP says. So next is the architecture insights and benefits for, of course, both S4HANA and ECC versus S4 we have seen. S4HANA's 3-layer architecture database, right? It's the architecture which is like database, application, presentation, is built for speed, efficiency and enhanced cybersecurity, enabling real-time monitoring and protection of sensitive data. So that means the 3-layer architecture we have in ECC is something we have in S4 also, but it's with enhanced speed, efficiency and cybersecurity options. So you see, ECC relied on traditional database, while S4HANA's is in-memory architecture, which offers a major leap in performance, especially in cloud security, risk management, and data processing. So all you need to understand technically between the difference between ECC and S4 is the in-memory database. Instead of a traditional database, it's an in-memory database HANA, which will have a column-based search options and which will search for the data in the real time faster and gives you the outputs reports easily. That's the biggest advantage. Moving on. Of course, you see the core components of S4 interface is the role of S4 HANA in cloud security. So in cloud-centric world, because everything is cloud, cybersecurity and data protection are paramount. That's something we can't negotiate, right? So this advanced architecture and real-time data processing capabilities enables organizations to strengthen their security posture with S4. Because with cloud SAP S4 HANA system, you will have an effective management of both access control and process control. Access control is who needs to have what access, right? So if someone needs an access, we'll give it. That's called access control. But who needs to have what access is called process control, because if you should have this access or not is process control. But if you should have access and you want access or not is access control. I repeat, if you are supposed to be given an access or not is something to be defined, right? If you want to have an access to some financial documents, are you allowed to do that? Someone like your manager will decide that. If they say yes, then that's a process control decision that will be taken. Then if you are has to be given an access, that's an access control. Like you have to be given for this user this access, that access control part will be done. So this is how different risk migration or sorry, risk analysis, migration or any of the risk management can be run easily in S4 with cloud specifically. That's the advantage. Okay. And now here we comes to the SAP, different SAP products basically. So this is not a product, I would say in each module, these are the offerings that you have, I would say. For example, if it's human capital management, SAP HR is a module, SAP FI is a module, finance. Product development collaboration is one module, and SAP procurement SAP MM is a module. SAP sales and customer service, SAP SD, sales and distribution, and customer service. Basically, SAP CS is a different module. SAP manufacturing, SAP PPV call, production planning is a module. SAP EAM, enterprise asset management is a module, right? So then operations across functions like SAP quality management and then SAP HS, environmental health and safety are different modules that you have, global trade and all. So each module will have different works. For example, SAP HR has talent management, workforce management, workforce deployment, and user service delivery. So these are the different processes that you have there, right? And there's financials. SAP Finance will have like your financial supply chain, treasury, financial accounting, management accounting, corporate governance, etc. Different types. Then product development has different things, and procurement has different things like your procurement requisition, sourcing, manage purchase orders, contracts, invoicing, like end-to-end procurement flow. Then sales and distributions is also like you have sales order management, after sales management, different things identified. So you have to have a different steps which you need to identify specifically in each stream, I would say. So continuing theme here, what we have seen is that different modules will have different business processes, right? So SAP sales and order sales will have sales order management, delivery, customer billing, etc. Customer service is like after sales and service you have. So each module itself is an ocean. I'm telling you again and again, it's each module or SAP of SAP is a ocean. So people say you can learn 2 modules together, 3 modules. No, you have to be perfect in one module. It takes 15-20 years. I'm telling you. I'm not exaggerating. It takes 15-20 years to be an expert in one module. So all of us also as a consultants work in one module primarily. Of course, we learn other modules so that we'll get to know, but it's the later stage. You need not to learn everything at one day, not in the day one. Okay. So manufacturing, you will have production planning, manufacturing execution, manufacturing collaboration. Then enterprise asset management has different processes. Cross functions like quality management is required in procurement, quality management is required in warehouse, quality management is required in sales, right? So then environmental health and safety also the same way. Inbound and outbound warehouse management and global trade, like whenever you procure something or you sell something, right? So and project portfolio management. So these are all things that you need. Okay. So that's the biggest advantage. Okay. Next. So next we go to them. Then here we will get to know what are the different modules, tech modules we have. For example, SAP has all the modules categorized into technical and functional modules team. So there are different technical modules where there'll be a bit of technicalities like coding and everything involved in, but functional modules also there. So we just see the differences now. For example, you see SAP Basis is a technical module where SAP Basis consultants will do the system setup, infrastructure setup basically. And SAP security is a different module where once the system setup is done, who needs to have access and all will be they'll be working on. So these two are the very technical modules where SAP basis involves in the primary setup, basic system setup, infrastructure, server connectivities, etc. All of them will be done. SAP security works in such a way that where access and process control, like I said, right, what access to be given to whom and when and how and at what time, that thing. And SAP NetWeaver. SAP NetWeaver is a portal based application where the portal setups, etc. can be done whenever a portal setup is required for some business process. Solution manager is also a kind of, I would say, not purely technical, but for the consultants only, where if any, mostly business will also use, but like where any business process mapping, etc. needs to be done in solution manager, it will be done. Exchange infrastructure is basically the middleware we call. Whenever a data has to flow from SAP to any application or from a other application to SAP, right? The data will exchange in with through this exchange infrastructure. We call SAP CPI, right? Cloud CPI or C. There are different names, PI or XI, but the infrastructure is basically to move data interfacing between systems. And then this is written as technical, but SAP SRM is not technical. It's both functional and technical. And SAP Industrial Information Systems Management is not also technical, it's functional. Customer relationship management is functional, where you'll have customer. Of course, in these modules, what happens is it's both technical and functional. Even HANA and then ABAP, right? ABAP is complete technical. ABAP is like this advanced business application programming for any functional consultant or for any business process like procurement, sales, finance, logistics, warehouse, everything. For all the streams, the development, any custom coding is required. That would be done in ABAP, in SAP. I repeat, for any business process, there is any custom development of coding is required, that will be done in SAP ABAP. Next, SAP functional modules. So you see, you understood the technical modules that we have, right? Remember the SAP basis, security, and then SAP ABAP. These are the very important or the widely used, and SAP CPI for data movement. But then the broad classification that we have on the other side of the modules or the business processes, business process, which is categorized as a functional module. Like I said, right, production planning. All the manufacturing will come as production planning. All the quality management, quality checks that you do is something that comes in the quality management. And then all the procurement activities, sourcing and procurement comes in metals management. Financial ledger setup, financial accounting, everything comes under the financial accounting. Then financial supply chain management, like supply chain management, finance, any activities has to be done. That would be like with finance module itself. Controlling is basically asset control, asset controlling or cost controlling, product costing, etc. All this will come under the controlling module. So, but if you have to do this 4, 5, 6, 3 modules, you have to be very good at finance. You have to have a finance background. And if you have to be in SAP PP or QM, you have to be a background of manufacturing floor work that you have done. You need to know every production planning or manufacturing terminologies and process. For example, you need to know what is version management. You need to know what is routing, what is what is work locations, and how this process happens. Everything you need to know. And of course, metals management is not that much any background is required. You can learn easily, I would say. There is something called SAP Sourcing and Procurement, the cloud edition that we have a course by me, which you can refer also. There is no background that's required also for this. That's a good thing. And then you have SAP Project Systems. This is also something that you need some finance background, else it's not easy. And then you have SAP Sales and Distribution. This SAP Sales and Distribution is basically where you will deal with the sales and distribution part, which you need to you don't usually need much of the background, but you understand the process is also good. And then you have something called SAP Basis Plant Main or the SAP Basics, no, not Basis, SAP Plant Maintenance if we call. SAP Plant Maintenance is also a functional module where you need to know how the plant maintenance activities will cover. And then SAP Logistics Execution covers both warehouse and inbound, outbound logistics, where you need to have some warehouse integration understandings as well. And then you need to have human resource management. Basically, this is purely HR process. You need to know how the talent staffing, how workforce management, how the salary updates, etc. Salary inputs for the users, etc. Employees, etc. needs to be configured, etc. So all these things has to be done. Okay. So this is the difference, guys. So please bear to remember or please remind yourself or understand that there are modules like technical and functional, but you need not to be both technical and functional. You have to be only one module consultant in your career. So you can choose your career based on your interest. If you want a technical setup, you can learn technical. But if you want functional process you want to work with, you can work on functional modules. Some people say technical will have less opportunities, functional will have more opportunities. No, it's not the case. Everyone will have good opportunities, good salaries, good growth in your career. You can select widely on what your background is. Based on your background, we suggest which SAP modules you can pick. So that's, or you can pick yourself also if you know. Okay. That's the difference between technical and functional modules that we have team basically. I hope you're able to understand. And of course, and then you have something called, you see what is basis. Basis is also a technical module which they want to cover a bit of it. So basis is basically business application software integrated solution. I repeat, it's abbreviated as business application software integrated solution. In this, it's basically it's the operating system for SAP applications. So this basis can be considered like Android for Google phones, iOS for Apple phones, right? The same way, it's an operating system basis on operating system for SAP applications. It is a middleware that allows the software applications like FIS or ST to run on the underlying operating system and database. Basically, this is the basic operating system which allows all the business processes like FIS, TP, PQM, and all the business applications runs on this operating system and the database that it connects to. And if you see daily operational tasks of basis consultants, yes, there will be system monitoring to check the logs if there are any logs from any transactions, dumps that system is giving that is causing an issue, or work process availability, like how much system to ensure stability, like how much uptime the system is having, is it good or not, right? Backup management, like ensure successful completion of HANA backups, like there will be some backup taken so that if something goes wrong, we can switch back to the backup of 2 days back or 3 days back system so that you will not lose the data, right? And there will be background jobs which will be scheduled by all the teams, that they'll check if this system load on the background jobs, if is it running properly or not, etc. This is something the basis team will look after and work with. Like that, they'll also have, for example, installation configuration. Any new systems comes, like quality system or any per system comes, they'll configure all the front end and back end systems, right? And the transport managements, like what transport, this is something technical, but I'll explain you. So basically, whenever there are any changes to be moved from development to quality or production, the basis team will do the transport movement where it will have some data to be configured that has to be moved by them only. And then there will be support backend upgrades. Of course, there is any upgrade to be done to the version or any patch upgrades to be done or support patches to be done. All these things also will be done by them. So, and any creating users and assigning roles, like first time roles you want to create, but then basis will create for the security team also, and security then will create you maintain for all the users. That's a different thing. And database administration, basically managing HANA memory usage, how it is being used, how much it is being leveraged, is it something going wrong, anything that has to be changed. So they are the system admins. They'll work on the system functionality to keep it up more time. Okay. And then we have something about SAP GUI team. So basically, I'll tell you very briefly in this session, but of course we'll cover in very detailed about this in other session where we have SAP also, which I will show. Okay. So basically, SAP GUI is basically a front-end program to access SAP systems. It's application where multiple variants from different environments. For example, like you will have in different colors, different languages also you can use. This is GUI is the older way of connecting. Okay, but it's available in S4 also, but it's older way of connecting. So this will be like a standard logon pod. You will have in that logon programmer pad, you will pre-configured list of SAP systems available that you will access from your computer once the logon pod is set up. So this is how it looks when you log on. Basically, this is how it looks when you log on. You see here. So you will have basically an SAP GUI setup where once you log on, this is how the system looks, the transactions, etc. that will come through. Okay. And then a project builder appears. Basically, you see there is something called project builder where how this is a sample screen. If any screen you open, this is how it looks. You can open any screen. You can open any procurement screen or sales screen or finance screen, project system screen, anything. But this is how at least the SAP GUI screen looks like. Okay. Okay. So this is what all the basics of SAP we have covered, guys. So we have covered the overview of SAP, what is SAP, how is SAP required, what is ERP, and what are the different ERPs you have, and what is SAP doing in ERP, how each business process of is something that your business use, and then ERP is connected to that process, and how SAP is connected, right? And then the benefit, what are the versions of SAP? We have SAP ECC, SAP S4, and then the differences between them, and then also we have seen about the modules, where the difference between modules like technical and functional, right? All of these are something that we have seen through. So this is how the basics of SAP you have learned. we'll be moving on to the other topics of how to use SAP and all in the further sessions. Okay, I hope you have a fair understanding now on what is SAP, and I would wish you to continue to watch the other sessions as well, where you will learn more about the practicals of SAP.
Hey there! Want to learn SAP and start your career in the SAP world? Our SAP for Beginners course is here to help. You can learn at your own pace on our platform. In this course, you'll learn all about SAP. It's a popular business software that helps companies manage their daily work, data, and business processes. Our course covers everything you need to know, from basic concepts to important SAP functions. It's designed by experts to make learning easy and simple. Your trainers are experienced professionals who have worked with SAP for many years. They're here to guide you and help answer your questions. And don't just take our word for it. Our learners enjoy the course and find the training very useful. People from different backgrounds have used this course to build SAP knowledge and improve their career opportunities. Best part? It is budget-friendly. This great chance to learn SAP is available at an affordable price. Ready to start your SAP journey? Enroll in our course today. And for more details, visit ZaranTech website.
So initially we have discussed about in the last sessions what is SAP, basics of SAP, etc. But today we are going to discuss more about the system and everything that you need to know about SAP is the concept that we said. But yeah, basically we want you to understand more about the basics of SAP, like the architectures of SAP, how SAP system looks and works and basics and lingers around the technicality. And then yes, how to log in and how to work on it, etc. also will be something we'll look at. So next we move on to disclaimer. The agenda is something that looks like this for this PPT, whereas overall if you see something, we will have the evolution of SAP system, SAP architecture, then how to get SAP access, log into SAP menu, transactions, then navigations, and then how our modules looks, favorites, and then the data aspects also come in. Okay, so if you look at the SAP architecture, right, how the SAP system is built or looks. So it's a three-tier architecture that SAP is providing. Okay, it's a three-tier architecture where you'll have the database layer, the application layer, and the presentation layer. So database layer is the one where you'll have all your data stored, and application layer is the layer where your functions of whatever the functions that you give as a commands will get executed. And the user species you see is the presentation layer where you'll have the users presenting in this presentation layer, users working on this particular business processes requirements into different transactions. So that means if you are into an procurement process, for example, right, you are a user that you want to create a purchase order and send to vendor, then you will create a purchase order. But whatever the details required to create a purchase order, for example, which material you want to order, from which vendor you want to order, and then how that, when is the delivery date or etc. details has to be fetched, right? You will have a material and vendor. So these materials and vendors are already created in the database by you itself, and those needs to be pulled from database by the application layer to the presentation layer so that you will be able to complete your transaction and post it. I hope it makes sense, right? So this is the three-tier architecture that we have. Okay, in the three-tier architecture, basically if you see the differentiation, database layer is those SAP R3 software components that specialize in management, storage, and retrieval of the data from the database layer. So we have a database layer. So from the database layer, we have here the data storage, and then in the data you can have the storage and retrieval both done in the database. And then next we have is about the application layer. The application layer is the one where this particular layer specializes in processing components, processing business applications, and from an application layer. So the processing of business applications, right? Whatever the requirements that will be there in the presentation layer that you ask for or you post for. So you retrieve, you ask for any data, and like you will search for any data, system will search in the application layer, will work in the background to get it from the database. Or you post any data, then also from the presentation layer, the application layer will take into the database and store it. So application layer is the middle one who is working on overall process. And then the SAP R3 component, there's the presentation layer, is what something it's specializing in interacting with end users from presentation layer. That's what it says. SAP R3 is the layer, right? That specializes in interactions with users for presentation layer, where there will be the works that whatever is required will be carried upon. Okay. Next. So three-tier architectures, presentation servers. So in the presentation servers, what happens? So basically, the presentation server is also called as a client layer, where that is something what we see. Layer in the sense you don't imagine anything like in earth layers, but a layer in the sense what it looks and how it works is something we are talking about, right? So you see here, client layer is basically what you log into your laptop or computer and work on, and then presentation layer is your user interaction. So what happens is in SAP user, we propose something called a GUI. GUI stands for graphic user interface. That means in any of the applications that any of your computers that you log in, be it a computer desktop or mobile device or laptop, so there will be a GUI, graphic user interface, designed for users to log in, which you can look and work. Okay, that's the presentation layer. So application layer is the background layer, where we also call it as like kernel and basic layer, and then where the what we say this serves as a purpose of communication between the presentation and database. So this is like a CPU, you can consider, right? So where this layer works off as a communicator between the presentation and database layer. So the application server is where the dispatcher distributes the workload across different processes, making the job done. So this application layer works on load balancing, and then the system infrastructure setup will be there, and also any data retrievals or data processing, etc., should be done. That can also be done based on the commands given in the presentation layer. So you as a user will give the commands, then the system will create or will be able to provide the system will be able to provide the data required for you, what you asked for. Okay, so this is the application server work. And then in the application servers, right? So the database, basically after that, if that's a database, if we work about, so in the database, what happens is the database layer stores the data. Data stores can be business data, SAP system data, SAP tables and programs, etc. What happens is there will be databases in the world which are structured and unstructured. So structured databases needs basically so structured databases will be the ones which are having the data stored in table format, whereas unstructured databases are the ones which will not be having, which will not have basically what we say unstructured data will be stored in a raw format. So and then there are different databases in the world that we have. So there are different databases like you have Oracle, Microsoft, SQL Server, IBM, DB2, Siebel, Sybase, etc. So any of the databases that you want, you can use here. Then moving on to the SAP instance is how it looks, right? For example, you see computer A, one login, computer B, computer C, three logons, and then the database is common, and then SAP GUI web browser is common. So that means, so different, so the GUI will be one that the where you log in, right? You, for example, you and I are consultants. For example, I am an MM consultant and you are an SD consultant. So we both have a separate computers and logins, right? So, but all of them will connect to the same database, right? The same application here all applications converted into because there is one SAP application which we are talking about, and that relates to the database level what we have. And then now it goes to the SAP GUI or web browsers. Whatever you log in, the data will be fetched upon or posted upon. So this is the landscape of how the SAP logons will be. Like when you have SAP, you try to log on and you see that's a presentation layer you see basically. And in the SAP logon, what happens is you'll have development, testing, and production systems. That means three different systems that you will have: development system, testing system, quality system we call, and production system. So what happens is it's all the same systems it looks like. The functionality, how you use the system will be different, I would say. Okay, so development system is basically where you will do the system configurations, custom code required, etc. You will do in development system. Then you move to whatever the changes that you have done in development system, you will move to quality system, and from the quality system you move them to production system. Okay, production is where actual business runs, and where the end users, like everyday business users, will do the transactions like ordering anything, creating anything data, or posting data, or retrieving data, etc. like this. So this is how the architecture will be like. You will have a development, quality, and production environment. So how do you understand this with an example, right? So for example, you have any food ordering app. For example, any of the countries you have a food ordering app, right? So in that food ordering app, if they before they introduce a feature like to you, for example, they introduce a feature like 10 minutes food delivery, for example. So if they have to introduce that feature, they have to test, they have to develop, right? So they develop it in the development system, they do a quick testing, and then they move the changes to quality system, in which the quality checks will be done. For example, the integration testing, regression testing, all different kinds of testings will be done by them, and then they move them to production, and then in the production the actual process will run. So you are an end user to an food delivery app where you will do the actual order, right, within which the real business will run. So before that there will be a quality system where the testings will be run, and before that there will be a development system as well where this process will run. Okay, that's the case how it you can understand. Then SAP in architecture wise, you will have to understand what is the next gen business suite that SAP is providing. Basically, if you see SAP S4HANA builds the next generation business suite where innovation in memory database. You have a database which is in memory database, and then new architecture and data models are something SAP is developing where you'll have the good UI technology and cloud and on-premise deployment models. For example, you'll have on cloud or on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, everything is possible in SAP, and then it's all natively integrated across the processes in SAP. So this is the diagram where you can see, right, SAP on premise or on cloud, whatever the system it is, and then SAP platforms runs on this particular database and applications. So SAP S4 HANA is a suite of products that SAP is building, which helps us to easily integrate with and work with. So first, for example, now the if we come to the next steps of how to log in or get access to SAP. So if you see, if you want to get access to servers to SAP, identify the SAP version you need. So first step is obtaining SAP remote server for SAP practice systems to identify the specific version SAP that you require. For example, you see any specific version that you want to talk about, right? For any specific version that you have, you can fix that, because there are different versions. Always take the latest version, I would say. I would prefer to always have the take the latest version basically. Okay, and then once you have the version decided, for example, there are different versions available like ECCS for HANA, SAP Business One. There are different ones, so ideally, so not ideal guess, but different versions, so each of them will be different things. Okay, so that's something you decide the right version, right? And then that's always the usually the latest version that we have, and then we'll take it up, and then we'll have to get access. But first of all, usually most of the SAP practice systems will be in the good ones will be in remote servers to connect and practice. Okay, so next, find suitable SAP remote server access provider on or a trial version. So once you've identified the version you need, the latest version you have two options for obtaining access. The first option is to use the trial version provided by SAP itself, which you can log in and check in the Learning Hub, or the option allows you to explore and familiarize yourself with systems functionalities for free. So alternatively, you can opt for a remote access provider that offers fully functional servers. That means this is like typically is with comes with a charge, but you take this that you can practice any module, any process very easily. Okay, next. So how to get access for a trial version? You visit the SAP website and register to get access for the trial versions, which will be like very limited and it will have a lot of restrictions. But if you choose a remote server access provider, which research provides these provides the systems which meets all your needs, where you can register and then you can pay and take the access. Okay, next, how to get SAP server access. So activate the SAP server. Once your request is approved, you will receive an necessary login credentials from the provider of the trial version. You can take that, and then you have to set up the environment on your PC. So after gaining access to SAP server, you will need to set up the SAP environment. That is like installing the SAP client software and configuring the settings based on the instructions. So there will be clear instructions on how to set up the SAP server. You need not to worry. By following these steps, you can gain SAP external access for practice and enhance your skills and knowledge in the SAP applications. Okay. Next. So for example, favorites in overview, if we are talking about, right? So basically, I'll just cover how an SAP system looks, and then according to it, we will process identified. So this is how the SAP system looks. For example, I'll after you open it, but before you open it, this is how the SAP logon pad will be. Okay, so you will see a logon pad where this is after installing the SAP, you get a logon pad, and then here you will see there will be a system details. For example, you see here there is a system details that is showing up. And how do you do that? Basically, this details you get it once you log in. This will be very empty, and you can click on new, and you will have the details coming up here. Connection shortcut favorite. So you just click on connection, user specified system. Here you will give the application server details given to you, and then the instance ID and the system ID. So basically, you need to give the system ID, instance, and the application server, and then you just click on OK, 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 next. You finish, then this is how the system will look here, and you double click on this, then it will ask you for a login credentials, and then this will open. So you see this will ask for a user password, and then which if you have the user password, you will be able to log in. So which version of SAP S4 HANA are we using? S4 HANA 2025, the latest version that we have available in the market. So once you log in, this is how the SAP screen looks like. Okay, Next. So basically here we have the favorites, how to maintain the favorites and all, right? You see, so favorites allows learners to build personalized launch to the frequently used transactions. So characteristics of favorites is basically displayed as favorites folder at the top of the SAP access tree. So user specific changes do not affect other users, can include transactions, etc. in the folder. So the ways to add a transaction to your favorites. From the menu tree, drag and drop the transaction from the SAP menu or user menu into the favorites folder. So using the add to favorites, right click on favorite folder, insert transaction, enter the transaction code that you need. So organizing favorites, right click favorites, insert folder to create custom folders, etc. So this is the benefits for training or the trainees who will do it, because that will ready users to search for transactions, etc. But before we talk about more, so here is what you see, a favorites folder, right? So here you can right click, insert folder or insert transaction. Let me insert a transaction which I know. So MM01. I'll just click enter. So this is create material. You have to you have to give a right transaction, guys. It's not like any random thing you will give it. Okay. So if you double click, it will lead you to your transaction, create purchase order. Or you want to give more folders also is okay. So you see create material is coming up. So for every different business process, every transaction, you will have a transaction code in SAP. I repeat, there will be a transaction code in SAP. So that particular transaction code you will use basically here, or give it in the favorite section, so that you can save once and then you can use it easily. Yep. Okay. Next. So here you see after the favorites. So here you have the different transactions which we talked about, right? So we said there are transactions. So there in the transactions, there are different types: master data and transaction data. So what is master data transaction? So master data transactions are the ones which are like the basic foundational informations. So defines entities in transactions, updated frequently, critical for system functioning, are the different things that we talking about, right? Basically, master data transactions are the ones where you will have a specific set of data for every business process you need to set. For example, we will have a material master, right? We will have a material master, which is required for all business processes. Example, you'll have, how do I say? You'll have a material which is required for procurement, okay? Which is required for procurement, and then which is also required for sales, which is also required to be stored in warehouse, right? So, and then the amount like accounting amounts also needs to be worked upon, like. So that's how basically you will have one material for every business process, in procurement, in sales, in warehouse, in finance, everywhere, right? So that's why we are asking that this data is a master data. We are calling it as a master data. Then vendor master. So vendor master is basically the vendors or the suppliers details that we store in our system to order the details required. Okay. Then once the master data are posted, these are like one time activity we do, or very few times. Like it's not like daily you add a material to your business, right? So it's like only sometimes you add a material, and then, or the other way is like you will have different updates to the material masters required. You can do that. Okay. Or you will have any changes to the existing material data, you can do that. So materials and vendors and customers, right? These are the classic examples of the master data requirements that we have. Okay. Once the master data are created, these transactions are maintained, then usually this master data is used in the transactional data that you post every day. Okay. So what is transaction data? These are the basically results of transactions, where all the records of transactions will be kept and they are constantly changing. Why we say constantly changing? Because transactional data in SAP means you have a requirement to procure anything, then purchase order will be created. Is a transactional data. And what is the purchase order created with? Purchase orders are created with or based on the material and vendor data that we have. Because if you want to order something, what do you need? You need to have you need to have a material, you need to have a vendor, you need to have the plant in which you want the stock to be delivered, right? So all these details. On the same way, if you take any sales example, so in the sales data, if you want, sales data is basically where you will have a material which you need to sell to the customer, right? So a material is basically is something that we are selling to the customer, right? Customer is the person who is buying things from us, right? So in this case, you will have to have the material and customers as maintained. Okay. So these transactions we post day in and day out. So now if we want to go more deeper into the master data, right? So here in the master data, you'll have here you see static or foundational info. Master data requirements or master data characteristics, if we talk about, it's the static and foundational information, because the master data will be very basic. Like one material you will have, you can purchase it or sell it, or you can even store it, right? So it's the static data which you can use as a foundational information. And then next is about the accuracy. So master data should be very accurate, because if that's wrong, the transactions that we post will be wrong. Then master data are updated infrequently. Master data usually are updated infrequently, and master data are updated. Master data are in defined basically, right? These master data are updated, defines entities in transactions. So this defines entities in transactions means this master data will be the key for process holder in every transaction that we have. Okay. And then this is the context for all data. That's true. For every transaction that we post, master data will be required, and this is the key thing. And then if we go to the next steps, right, key points on master data. Master data provides the context for all other data in the systems. Okay. Master data provides the context for all other data in the system, typically updated infrequently, critical for defining entities involved in business transactions. So this is what is something we spoke about, right? Okay. And then this is the master data examples like business partner records, like the vendor master records, and then the employee data or product information is basically the metal master information. Okay. So master data is the very basic data that you want or you will have for, right? This is the foundation for all the transactions. This defines entities. It's the same story, so I'm not going much deeper. Which you understood that master data is required for our to process our transactions. And of course, in the future trends, we have different master data requirements. For example, like AI and data, machine learning integration, blockchain, IoT. So there are different things coming up, but of course, the basic aim is for us to do the basic transactions or processes. So here you have the transactional data. So here in the transactional data, you will see what basically. So you remember we spoke about, right? Transactional data are the ones where we'll have different transactions in different modules. For example, in materials management, you will have purchase orders, purchase contracts. In sales, you will have sales orders, sales scheduling agreements, sales contracts, and goods issues, deliveries as transactional data. And then finance, you'll have postings or payments as transactions, right? So, and next is where like this transactional data have different dates, times, and amounts. So there are different dates and times and amounts that you will have the different transactions working with, and then the transactional data is constantly changing. Next, this transactions will record the transaction details. Transactional data will record the transaction details that are required basically. Okay, and then so this tracks the flow of goods and services basically. Of course, right? If I said in procurement, you'll have the inbound, and then in the service you'll have the out in the sales you'll have the outbound. So there will be different things basically. And then transactions usually are as a result of business transactions, like creation of sales orders, creation of purchase orders, etc. And then in any inventory movements are also considered as transactional data, but to do the every transaction you need the master data. That's the main thing that we need to consider. Okay. And next, if in the transactional data, I'm just skipping this once basically because this is very common thing. You need not to focus more on the technicalities or the too much technical details initially. Okay. Then, so if you see integration of transactional data, right? Integration of transactional data. So here you see orders integration, transactional data integration, like stock integration, real-time data transfer, right? Different modules. So different processes will be there. Integration of transactional data across streams. So you need not to worry much about. So here you see once the transactional details are done, master data and transactional data is something we spoke about, right? So here you will have the organization structure also, which we are talking about. So basically the organization structure is how your organization is set up. Organization structure is the one where your organization is set up, we talk about, right? So for example, okay, so the ERP organization structure exists to establish a framework that enables the efficient processing and management of all critical business process. That means, and you see the next is users can leverage several organization units to represent their company's legal and organizational structure, and enabling the creation of enterprise structure from an accounting, sales, and distribution metals management perspective. So basically, This org structure, right, whatever you see, is that an organization, every organization needs the structure to be maintained. So what happens with this organization structure definition is that how your company is defining or how your company is having the legal details, right, maintained. For example, how do I say? Let's suppose taking an example of a Tata company. So in Tata, there are different group of companies, out of which Tata Motors is one, Tata Steels is one, Tata. So different companies you have, right? So Tata Motors is one company. Okay, Tata Motors is one company where you will have their legal bookkeeping system. So they'll Tata Motors itself will have is a company where you'll have some tens of different plants that you have under it, right? And also you will have even you will have, for example, a storage location under one plant in one country in one place, and then in the other plane, other part of the country, you'll have another plant and a storage location. So all of them should be defined as org units. Okay. The next, understanding what is the organization or hierarchy structure that we have. So the SAP organizational structure refers to the hierarchy arrangement of entities within SAP system. So that means in the SAP ERP systems, right, or in any other SAP systems, the org structure is the fundamental concept. The reason is what is your company doing and what are the org units that you have and how you position your employees into that org units is the very basic thing. So first we define that. Based on the org units, we define the master data, and based on the org unit and master data together, we will have the transactional data posted. So if you see, the mark data is basically a plant, a company code where you have, right, and then on the org data plant, in what plant which you will have the metal being procured or sold, that you will, or in where storage, in which storage location of the plant. And then and then the next question is, what do we say, and then the next storage that we have, the next concept we have is about the mass data. So this organization data and then mass data, like this metal you want in this plant to be procured, so you will give both the details, org data and metal data, and create the purchase order. Okay. So this is the requirement of this is the definition of a org data. So you see here the key components of SAP org structure, how it looks, right? So the key org structure that you have is client level, company code level, purchase organization, plant level, storage location. So we'll talk about each one of them, team. So we'll talk about each one of them. So what is client level? The client is the highest level in the SAP organizational structure hierarchy, offering separate master data records and tables and configuration settings. So basically, this client level is basically nothing but the highest level where any data can be maintained. So this one client that we have, or the company that we have, right? One company that we have is something as a pure business entity, is something considered as an organizational unit. Okay. Whereas in one company or client, you'll have different company codes. A company code is the smallest organizational unit in which a self-contained set of accounts can be drawn for external reporting. So it has, for example, what is the company code, right? Is the smallest unit in terms of finance, okay, which will have the bookkeeping system. So basically, company code represents independent accounting within a client and has its own profit or loss and balance sheets. Basically, you have your own profit or loss accounting sheets, right? So in that level, this company is considered as the company code. So in Tata Motors they might have two Tata Spares, Tata Sales, or Tata Service, right? So each of them can be considered as an unit. Okay, each of them will be considered as a company code. That's considered as a company code unit. And then after the company code is created, you'll have something called different purchase organization. So in the purchase organization, a purchase organization is a unit where it's defined to designed to subdivide an enterprise structure according to the specific requirements of the purchasing group. So purchasing organization is a level users can procure materials or services and negotiate the conditions with purchasers or vendors. So purchase organization is the unit where you will have your purchasing, or this is the organization in your company, or the unit is defined to for the procurement of materials and services for your company. And then you have plants. Plant is basically a physical location where goods are procured or services are provided, and is often associated with a specific geographical location also, team, to have a relevant logistics and production process. So basically, a plant represents a physical location where goods are procured or produced or services are provided. So it's basically a subdivision of the enterprise units where your procurement, production, metals management, maintenance, everything happens. And a plant can be a maintenance facility or a production unit. Both can be, anything can be considered as a plant. So under the company codes, you will have the plants. And storage location. A storage location is basically a physical, can be mostly usually a physical storage location of an individual plant where all the materials that you have procured or produced will be stored. So how do you understand this organization hierarchy? Is the company client as the big level. Under the client, you'll have different company codes which are having the separate bookkeeping systems. And purchase organization is basically the one which is like for procurement of metals or services you will have. And the same way sales organization you'll have, which will be responsible for sale of metals or services. And plant level is basically the plant where you will have the all the a plant is basically a maintenance facility or a manufacturing facility which you will have, and in that plant any production or procurement or sales storage will happen. And the storage location is where the materials in the plants will be stored. Like you'll have different storage locations in one plant, and you can have multiple plants in one company code you can operate with. Okay. So basically, there are different org elements that you will have, which is different from the modules. For example, you have a different org elements in sales and distribution. You'll have different elements in metals management. You'll have different organizational structures in SAP accounting. So each modules will have different organizational structure. So each module organizational structure is something we'll navigate through and then understand what it is. Okay. So in the SAP organization structure in ST, you can see you can utilize multiple structures and all etc. It says layer, right? But what or how it looks, right? For example, you see you'll have a sales organization because you will be responsible for sales of a company, right? Then what is the unit that is highest responsible for is sales organization. In division is basically you can define a division with specific roles with wide range of products, enabling the creation of customer specific agreements. So you'll have different divisions in your business, right? You'll have an for example bakers division, confectioners different division. So like that, different divisions in your business you can define where yes, which division will be responsible for sales of which materials or products, right? So and then you'll have a distribution channel where you'll have users can distribute saleable materials. For example, like is it a wholesale distribution channel or a retail or an online or direct sales, right? So that's how the distribution channel also will be set up, because from certain metals will be sold in this distribution channel, certain metals in that distribution channel, right? That's how it is done. So basically the combination of a sales organization, division and distribution channel together, we call it as sales area. I repeat, sales organization plus division plus distribution channel is called a sales area, because you can have one sales organization with one division and distribution channel like 1 1 1 or 1 2 2 or 1 3 2. So you can have different distribution channels and divisions to assign to one sales organization, where according to it you will have one sales area defined, because accordingly the sales can be tracked or used. The same way, you'll have an organized structure in metals management also. In metals management, what it will be, like we have seen, you'll have a purchasing organization, you will have a plant where the purchases will be done. Same way in accounting, you'll have different things like the company codes, cost centers, right? And in the companies, you will have the accounting also done. So how is this linking different org structures in SAP system works? So in SAP systems, basically sales organizations and company codes can be seamlessly linked. Multiple sales organizations may be active with one single company code. A plant is always linked to one company code in the system. However, plants can be assigned to different sales organizations. This is like how you set up the organization structure that SAP in SAP is something written here, right? So in basically that we will see in the system also. You don't worry, okay? How to set up this basic org structures and all. I'll show you in the very high level in the system. You don't worry. So that you will get to know how do you configure the org structure, how to do that, and what and how this linkage will happen as well. Okay. Here you have advantages of organizational elements in SAP. So of course, each organizational element you define, it will help you to have an role-based access control. Like you are responsible for purchasing, you will have that access to purchasing org structures only. And you will have reporting wise, it will be easy because for this company code you want to see how much is the profit or loss, you can see easily. And then data consistency, because you have a specific org units or specific business units where you want to work with, then you will have a data consistency. And then integrated business flow will also be possible doing this, right? That's the benefit. Next, main advantage of organized elements. So basically there are like the ones I said, right? There will be accurate reporting and role-based access control, data consistency, efficient business processes, etc. Okay. Of course, this is one of the organizational the data that you will see again in different in the finance side. Okay, you see cost SEO area, assignment rules, cost centers, etc. So these are like different master data, sorry, different org units that you will have in different what we say in different modules particularly. Okay, so this org structure is basically required for in every process to configure so that you will have the you will see how the setup can be done. So here you see the sales organization distribution channel division setup that is written here, and then you also see the sales and cross module integrations, how to set up in the configurations is something we are looking at. Okay, so let's see how to configure the SAP system first. So there is a specific transaction team called SPRO. I repeat, the transaction itself is called SPRO. So if you have to give the transaction here, but you need to understand what you need to give how, right? So this is the menu bar on the top you have. Okay. This is the menu bar this is the menu bar that you have. User menu, SAP menu, business workplace, etc. The menu options that you will have here. Okay. And then this is where you will give the transactions. Okay. This is where you give the transactions here. You have to provide. Okay. And then you will have the notifications bar here. For example, if you click the SPRO transaction, then you can click enter on your keyboard or you can click execute also. That's okay. Okay. If I give it, so each transaction you will have different things. Okay. This execute took this one. Okay. But SPRO, you give it SPRO and just click enter on your keyboard. I'm clicking it. So you will see this is where all the configurations in SAP happen. I repeat, all the configurations happen here in SPRO. Okay. So here you see there will be different configurations required in SAP. Configuration is basically the basic setup that you need to have so that you can use that setup for posting transactions or creating master data, etc. So that's the key thing. So first we will start with the configurations that we have for the enterprise structure, right? The basic configurations that we need or the basic configurations that we need to do. So here are the basic configurations that we have. So here you see the enterprise structure basically. So that means first you need to define your enterprise structure, how your company is, and based on the enterprise structure, you will have the following steps as well. Like the next things is like what we say, how you define the specific processes. Okay. So based on for that, you need to have the master, what we say, organization data setup. So here you have enterprise structure. If you expand, you will see definition assignment. First, we need to define. So in the definition, you'll have module wise process. For example, the first thing that we see here is finance, right? So here you see financial accounting. In the financial accounting, you will have a company. First, you need to define a company and you will have an control area, create control area, company code, business area. All the setups can be done. Okay. So you can define that. So here you see a define a company. How do you define a company? You will have different options to define a company. So here you will have the company. Here you can create a new entity. So when you create a new entity, you will have to give the company name. For example, I'll say ZAR. So you will have the country and region you are operating. For example, United States. Okay, and you can give any other company number details, etc. You can give, but for now I'm not giving. But whenever you try to configure anything in SAP, you see there is something called a customizing request. For the configurations, you will have a customizing request coming up. So that means all the configurations will be captured in a transport request. I repeat, TR, we call it as transport request. So this transport request will hold the configurations you did it on your name so that we can track easily to, and then this transport request will be, there will be a number generated. For example, if I just click OK, it's saying specify a request, own request or create a request. I'll create a new request. So if I have to create a new request, I have to give a description. What is the new description that you will give? So for example, Zaran company setup. Okay. So it will generate a number based on the description. It will generate a number 3471, right? So this always, whatever the configurations you do, this all this TR you want to store, you can store. If there's a different setup configuration, then you can store in a different transport request. So this transport request number, we will give it to basis team, basis consultants. They'll move the changes from the development system that we configure to the quality and production systems. We will not do it. Okay. So this is the configure company I have just created. I can create a company code also. So basically company code you see always should be copy, delete, check company code. So we have to copy and create a company code itself, but not and basically what we say, directly create a new company code. That's what SAP gives. So you copy org object, yes. Standard SAP always gives the standard company code as 0001. So there will be for especially for company code and purchase and plant setup, right? You will have lots of setups that might be required. So you never will create a new one. You always copy and create a standard SAP option. Okay. So here you copy 0001, and this company code what you have is a legal entity in your business. So how do we define a company code? How do we define a plant in the numbers, right? Just we sit with the business, right? We will ask them what plants they have and what numbers if they are following, or we will propose. For example, this company codes in SAP can be alphanumeric. That means it's always 4 digits. So you can have all alphabet, all numeric, or alphanumeric, both together. Okay. So you just click OK. All the data will be copied. We are okay with it. So all the data that we have for 0001 will be copied, and if any changes required, that has to be done. Okay. It's being saved. So the same way, plans will also be created, but company code is written under the company where you'll have the org units defined, right? So and then plans is which it's a maintenance facility or a production unit where you'll have the plans also set up, right? So basically what you have here is a company code setup being done for now, which is something finance will use, and under company code we'll have the different plans, right? So we will create a plan as the next step later. Okay. It's being saved. Maybe this is the system, so it's a bit slow, but usually system will not be this slow, guys. You don't worry. This will be very faster only. Yeah. Parallel basically transport and travels is basically it's a different concept that you can do without also. I don't know why system is giving this many errors. Sorry, this many prompts. Usually this many will not come in general case. Or different things coming up. So all of them has to be said yes. I think sorry team. This is taking a bit time. Let's consider it. Let's get okay. Company code 0001 copy to GAR1. This is what SAP is giving a message. So we have a company code. So how do you see that? Go to edit company code, and here in this company code you have to now you will see the name of basically SAP Asia and all is coming up. So here you change it to ZaranTech Consulting. Here you see the Germany address coming up by default from the 0001. You have to change it to somewhere in US, change it to US, then currency, you say currency is always then currency, and it can be anything, but what happened? I think I pressed something, but you can have in USD language also, you can have in, I'm just bringing up print screen, okay, or the delete one. The language you can have English, right? Company code, currency was changed, that's okay. So you save. And again, every time you save, there will be an transport request that you already have. You can use it and you can click OK and then save. Or you can create a new transport also. So what we have done is so far creating a company code, copying it. This is how you do in your real projects also, team. Okay. And then I'll also go to some other streams. Like for example, in logistics general, you'll have a plant. If you want to define a plant, you will see copy, delete, check plant. So you have to go to copy, delete, check plant and create a new plant always. Okay. So you go and then there will be always in the options. In SAP, we have this F4 help in every field where you can see the options that are available. For example, 1000 or 0001 or any other plan that you want to configure, right? You can configure. So for example, you copy this and you can create a new plan called ZAR1. That gives you the thing you want to really transport number. And yes, we said, okay, this is the, again, the transport request that you have. You want to store, you can store. You see, 10,000 copy to Jaran1. So once you have this Jaran1 plant configured, now you will have to define, you go back and then selected objects, completed objects. So this is how it will show. So you go back here and you will have to define, you take a step back. Here you will have define plant. Here in this define plant, you will have to go and go to Zaran1 and search for Zaran1. Here you will see the plant. You want to change the names, let's change it here. Okay, next. Here you have the descriptions, which you will change. Name 1, name 2 can be maintained and name 2 is optional. You can maintain, but the language and then the address, everything is coming from, you see, somewhere. And then you can have a plant in under address, whereas company code is the legal address of your company, right? So plant wherever the physical address of the plant it is, it can be maintained. Okay, if you want to keep it the same, you can keep it the same also for now. So it's again transport request saved. So same way we have created a plant, right? Now you can go back to, for example, in logistics, you have a plant you have divided, right? And then you can have basically in sales, you will have an Oh, no. In the logistics, you can have a purchasing organization also created. Where is this purchase organization? Yeah, that will stay there. But for now, sales distribution, you can have a sales organization created, distribution channel created. So how do you do? Define, you see, define, copy, delete. Always this, we have to copy the standard options that SAP provides and create a new one. That's always the better way to deal. Okay. So take a step back here, copy, delete, check sales organization. So here you copy the standard sales organization that you have, call it Zaran1. So you see sales organization to build their own copy to Zar1. Again, the names has to be changed here. So you take a step back, you'll have Zaran1 created, go to define sales organization. So it's all the same process everywhere in all streams, you see. But the details that you give has to be checked. So here sales organization 001, you want to change it, sales organization Zaran1, right? You can maintain the description and you can add the address details, etc. And you can save. Okay. So save. And then that the same way you have here, particularly sales of a sales group or anything, distribution channels can be created. And then the materials management, you will go now, you will see the purchase organization, storage locations. You can create a purchase organization. Purchase organization is not so key. So you can directly create also or you can copy also. So if you want to create a purchase organization normally, you give Zaran1 and then description Zar and then you save. That's it. Okay. Then you want a storage location. Storage location under the plant. What is the plant? ZR1. So you can create a storage location. You see, you copied the plant of 0001, right? You have all the storage locations coming. Of course, if you don't want them, what you can do is select all, delete, because not all plants, what we say, not the same plant will have all storage locations, right? What do? You can create a new one. You'll give the name. For example, let's call it also ZAR1. Okay. Let's call this also ZAR1. ZAR S lock, and you can save in the transport. Okay. And then you will have different other modules where, like in logistics execution, you will have different setups like warehouse, right? You want to set up a warehouse, you can set up a warehouse. So different configurations we have. First, we have defined the configurations here. So whatever the definition we have done, you have to do the assignments. Again, you have to go to the financial accounting. You have to assign company to code to company. So which company code is with which company? For example, one is under which company? So it has to come under the company of Zaran. We have to assign. Okay. Now this assignments you want in the same transport, you can have it, or you can have a new transport. Create new transport, give Zaran assignments. You can have it as a new one. Then assign company code to create area, etc. Different configs in finance. We'll go to the other ones also. For example, we go to logistics general where you will see assign plan to company code. So which plan to which company code? Plant is something Zar1 we have created. So you see company code it's created to is 1000. So what you need to do is you need to copy an entry. Okay. And then here the company code is basically Zaran1, right? So already that's assigned. That's why it's giving an error. So let's cancel it. Then delete that entry and then create a new entry. So go to Zaran1. So plant itself is Zaran, right? So you delete this entry. Yes, you delete this entry, save, transport request again. Okay. Come back outside and then go in again and you click a new entry and you can Zaran1 is the plant and company code. You just click okay and you save, right? Same way. If you want to go to sales and distributions, you want to assign the sales organization to company code. Yes, you can assign the sales organization to company code. There would be already an assignment because we copied, right? If you remember what happened, I clicked something, sorry. So go to sales organization to company code, click on position or something is pending. Then let's do, okay, this we do. Sales organization is 1. So here you have Jaran with company code 0001, right? We don't want this. So you delete the entry that you have. Okay, what happened? Here you change it basically. You save. Okay. Then here you have in metals management, you will have purchasing organization to company code, purchase org to plant. For example, you will have purchase organization to company code. So which purchase organization you have here? ZAR1 is a new purchase organization. Company code is ZAR1 we can create, right? So here you see in one sales organization, we can have one company code and one purchase organization have one company code. So you save, right? Then purchase organization to plant, you want to configure, right? You will have an already existing entity, ZAR1 purchase org to plant. If you don't have it, then you add an entry, ZAR1 to plant ZAR1, which you created, right? You can save. So this is how the assignments also should be done, team. So the definition of enterprise structure and the assignments of enterprise structure is something we have seen in SPRO. So whatever the transports that you have created, you can go to transaction SC01. In SC01, you can, with your user ID, you displays the selection, it will show you the configurations, you see. And the good thing here is if you expand this configuration, there are assignments, there are company setup, right? There will be a transport task where if you click on this, it will take you to the transaction. That's a good thing. It will take you to that configuration. Sorry, not transaction. So in SPRO, whatever the configuration you have done, right, to there it will take, and you can see the values there. Okay, you see here, and then you go back and you expand it. Here you will see the tables and also the value in that you have configured. You see, these are the two values that I touched. This is the advantage of the transport that you can track. So this is the basics of the configurations that we have talked about, team. And then after that configuration, you will have different concepts that you need to talk about, right? How the integration happens, etc. But this is the basic configurations in SPO that you have configured once. That's enough when the first time setup or whenever a new configuration or the new org unit comes. So that's the concept. I hope you understood.
Hey there! Want to learn SAP and start your career in the SAP world? Our SAP for Beginners course is here to help. You can learn at your own pace on our platform. In this course, you'll learn all about SAP. It's a popular business software that helps companies manage their daily work, data, and business processes. Our course covers everything you need to know, from basic concepts to important SAP functions. It's designed by experts to make learning easy and simple. Your trainers are experienced professionals who have worked with SAP for many years. They're here to guide you and help answer your questions. And don't just take our word for it. Our learners enjoy the course and find the training very useful. People from different backgrounds have used this course to build SAP knowledge and improve their career opportunities. Best part? It is budget-friendly. This great chance to learn SAP is available at an affordable price. Ready to start your SAP journey? Enroll in our course today. And for more details, visit ZaranTech website.
So today I would say we have a new topic which we are going to talk about, and then this will be more on the practicals and the realistic view of how SAP looks, right? In the system. So the topic that we are going to discuss is about the SAP practice system in practice. Okay. Then we move on to the agenda. We'll have the agenda split of this into 2 sessions usually, where we'll cover the first master data setup and then a procurement cycles and then the sales cycles as well. So this agenda is just to show you the flavor of SAP, how the transactions runs. Okay, so this is not something for you to deep dive into any specific module. Okay, so this will give you an overview of 2 specific key modules like SAP procurement and SAP sales, where you will get to know or understand how this runs. Okay. So to start with, first we'll talk about what is metal. This is not specifically for any specific module or any specific process team. So since you are into the SAP beginners course, we would like to tell you a bit basics about the SAP so that you'll get to know and understand how this SAP process runs. Okay. So out of this context itself, we have this flows of SAP MM and SAP SD being covered, whereas this metal planning is something we'll start with, and this metal planning concept itself is something that helps a lot because metal planning is required both in sales and procurement as well, of course in warehouse everywhere. So that's where we'll start with the metal planning and how this links to particularly into the product procurement and production, and then later on into the sales is something we'll cover. Okay, so first of all, if we start with the definition of metal planning, what is metal planning? Metal planning is a process of determining material requirements, calculating net requirements by considering the available stock and schedule receipts, and generating procurement proposals to ensure material availability for production and sales. So of course, this is a lengthy explanation where you have seen, but in general, what is metal planning? Metal planning is a process of identifying the stock requirements, considering the existing stock that you have, and also the stock that you're yet to receive. Okay, for example, you will have to find out the stock requirements. Then you will see you have a requirement of 100 quantity, but you need to see that how much of the quantity is there already in stock, maybe 50, and then you already have some scheduled stock coming in which you ordered, that's then 20, then overall you have 70. So you'll have a procurement proposal generated for the rest 30 quantity, right? So that what happens is you'll ensure your material availability for the production and sales. So this is the process of material planning to ensure the stock availability. Okay. Next. So what is material planning, and does material planning analyzes demand from sales orders and production orders? Material planning analyzes the demands from sales orders and production orders. Also considers current inventory and scheduled receipts. So what is the current stock that you have, and also the current inventory receipts, current inventory and also the scheduled receipt what you are about to get as well. Okay. Next, it generates procurement proposals for purchase requisitions about it. It can be a purchase requisition or a planned order. So what is it basically is a procurement proposal is something it's generated. Basically, it can be a produced or procured process to replenish the stock. Okay. So here comes the next. So how what we understood what is material planning, right? So to ensure the stock required stock based on considering the existing stock and soon to be receiving stock. So now, so material plan, whose responsibility is to do the material planning? So the material planner will be responsible for the material planning, right? So what is material MRP, which is the material planner or the material MRP controller, or is the one who will be responsible for, right? So that will be responsible for particularly the material planning. So, but then the material planner will be represented as MRP controller in SAP, who runs the material requirement planning. So MRP controller is a 3-digit alphanumeric key. So the material requirement planners will be considered as a 3-digit new alphanumerical key, which will be assigned to materials in the metal master MRP views. So they'll be representing the metal planning requirements availability for all planning activities of that particular material. So one planner, one metal planner will be assigned to, for example, maybe 10 materials, or maybe one metal planner for specific set of data in one plant, right? So this is how the MRP setup can be, right? But it depends entirely on the business requirements and how the business process runs. Okay. So next is, if you see MRP controllers, here you see if it's the cases, what they do, right? The MRP planners or the metal controllers, what they do is they enable workload. This enables to maintenance of this MRP controllers, enables workload distribution across planning teams. So that means across the teams, you'll have an workload distribution on how to manage the metal requirements. Okay. Next is basically facilitates responsibility management for material groups. So what happens is this MRP planner, metal planner, facilitates responsibility assignment for metal groups. You'll have different metal groups. This metal groups is basically the different metal groups you have, which you'll have an assignment of the metal controller who will be responsible for the management. And then using the filtering MRP reports and exception messages. Of course, you have different MRP controllers where reports based on the MRP controllers can be identified easily. Okay. So you understood now what is the material planning, and then who does the material planning? The material planners, which are called the MRP controllers in SAP. And then you have a material planner. Key functions. What are the key functions of material planners? So the key functions of material planners is basically monitoring MRP results, review exception messages and shortages. That means before we go into this, you need to understand what is MRP results, right? So MRP is basically material requirement planning. MRP is a processing. MRP is a process. Okay. And what happens in MRP is in the material requirement planning is the system will calculate the material requirement based on the existing stock, about to receive stock, and about the demand that we have. So primarily, why do you need stock, right? The question is primarily, why do you need stock? You need stock for specifically to either production or sale purpose. Then in the production or sales purpose, when you need stock, you will have a requirement. Then you need to consider how much you have in stock. Considering the stock that you have in, you will order for a new material, considering the schedule receipts as well together. So once the MRP runs, if there are any exception messages or any shortages of stock or any errors or something is there, then those activities something the material MRP controller will check with about. Okay. Next, what he or she does is converting planned orders convert to production orders or PRs. So what usually happens is the material requirement planning after it's run in SAP, right? What happens is we will have a planned order generated, which can be converted into a production order or a purchase requisition based on the production or produce procurement scenario. So for example, what happens is if there is an planned order generated after MRP run for a particular material, then if the material is in-house produced, you will have the planned order to be generated. If it's an external procured material, then you will create a production order. So there are different ways of procuring materials and goods and services. You need not to worry. Okay. So now the question is, after this, material master maintenance. So material master maintenance is if there are any MRP parameters that need to be updated for a material, right? Or any specific data that needs to be done specifically. So those ones will be something you will get to have. You will have the MRP controller maintaining them. Then the next is reporting. So if any plant specific MRP lists and stock reports are generated, if the MRP controller needs to check, and MRP controller will check the data and do it accordingly. Like they'll check the reports and any actions to be taken, they'll do it accordingly. So these are the key functions of MRP controllers or the material planners in day-to-day life. Okay. So material requirement planning is mostly about the planning of stock that we have in. Okay. But it's not something like the material requirement planning is only for procurement alone. Okay. Material requirement planning considers everything. Material requirement planning considers the stock requirements, the stock procurement to be done, and the sales data, etc. Everything together. Okay. Next. Here we have is basically the next step is about procurement planning in SAP. So the procurement planning in SAP, if you see, procurement planning determines how, when, and from which sources material should be procured to meet demand requirements while optimizing costs and maintaining supply chain efficiency. So basically, you'll have procurement planning determines how, when, and from which sources material should be procured to meet demand requirements while optimizing costs and maintaining supply chain efficiency. So that means how much is to be procured if you have want it, right? And when, that's important. You should not overburden the warehouse, and also you should not underestimate the stock requirements, right? And then from which sources, the point is you will have to identify specific sources of supply, the vendors basically, right? But who are prompt in delivery, cost effective together. Else it's not easy. You will not have the right way of procurement done, right? Okay. Next, then the most important thing is about the optimizing costs and supply chain efficiency. That's also something we need to see, right? And then once this is being done, right? Next is how many types of procurements we have or how this happens is the question. So example here, if you see external procurement from vendors. So you'll have an external procurement from vendors where you can procure the stock, particularly when you have a requirement, right? For any material you have a requirement. Also, you will have an in-house product manufacturing concept where for any material you want to have a stock requirement basically, then the stock requirements can be produced by for that material in-house itself. Then you can have this process, in-house product manufacturing process. Next, subcontracting arrangements. So basically there is in the different process of procurement, it's the external procurement itself, where subcontracting arrangements is the process where you will have a material to be ordered from the vendor. Okay. So this particular material we will order from the vendor, but the components required to manufacture that vendor to that material, or the assemble that material, finished material, those components you will give to the vendor from your company side. Okay. That's called and he will do the assembly or assembling or manufacturing and finishing it and give it back to your company. This is called the subcontracting concept. So subcontracting is a concept where you will order the finished materials and you will receive the finished material, but the raw materials required to manufacture that particular finished material will be provided by your company. This is called subcontracting. So these are three different topics that we have on how the procurement replenishment will happen. Okay. Next is about we have MRP types. Like if we have to run MRP, then what are the different types of MRPs that we have? So what you understood so far is about material planning. Then what are the material plan? Who will do the material planning? Material planners. And then if the material planning is done, what is the next step is usually the procurement proposals should be generated. Then what are the different types of procurement proposals that we have? Right. So the next point that we will have is about after the procurement planning, the next steps is about the different MRP types basically, because in the material planning you'll have different MRP planning types basically, right? So what are the different MRP types that you have? Basically the MRP is defined as material requirement planning. In the MRP process you'll have different MRP type. Based on the MRP type in SAP you will have different outcomes from MRP running. So let's see what are those. So first, if we see what is MRP type is a key indicator in the material master I repeat, MRP type is a key indicator in the material master that controls the planning strategy and defines how material requirements are planned. So the planning strategy is defined and then how its control will be defined. So define now determines if MRP runs automatically, right? It determine if MRP type determines if MRP runs automatically or manually or is excluded. And then you see specifies planning method, how the planning has to be done. Controls procurement proposal generation logic. It controls the procurement proposal generation logic, and it maintained in Material Master MRP1 view. So you'll have an MRP1 view where you'll have defined the MRP type. Based on that, the output comes triggered or you'll be able to define. Okay. So basically, if the first MRP type that we are going to see here on the screen is MRP type called PD. So this is a bit technical, don't worry about much, but it's a business concept which is matching to the technical SAP setup that helps you to understand more. So here we have the standard MRP type PD. So the standard MRP procedure for externally procured materials with planned independent requirements or dependent requirements from BOMs. So there are two different requirements that comes, independent requirements and dependent requirements. This comes from the production, okay? So the planned independent requirements are for the ones which will are the ones for the externally procured materials with planned with for externally procured materials you can have both any demand either from sales or manufacturing demand or dependent or independent demand. But when the demand comes, right, when PD is the MRP type for any material, planning is based on the demand purely sales orders, independent demands, procurement, production orders, etc. And then generates purchase requisitions automatically. So for a particular material, the purchase requisitions are generated by SAP. Next, most commonly used for purchasing of raw materials. Yes, this particular method is commonly used for purchasing of raw materials. Okay. Next, we'll have an MRP type V1. So this is one more MRP type, that means the way of running and metal requirement planning. So this is basically manual reorder point planning where the planner manually triggers the MRP when stock falls below the reorder point. So that means basically we will put a reorder point quantity, of course, of like for example 100 quantity. If the stock falls below 100 quantity, then the manual MRP run will trigger the okay, they understand that okay, the stock is less, then according to it, the requirements would be the metal requirement planning should be generated, which is nothing but the purchase requisition should be created in the system. Okay, next. So next is basically we'll have the other reorder point concept, which is the MRP type is called the automatic reorder point. The earlier one we have seen is the manual reorder point. Now this is something we are talking about, the automatic reorder point. So this automatic reorder point concept is something that works. Okay, the automatic reorder point is the concept where if the system automatically creates a purchase requisition when the stock falls below the reorder point based on the consumption patterns. Like if the consumption is going less, if the consumption is going high, and then based on the consumption, whenever MRP is running, system will check and system itself will order the stock to the vendors. It will create a purchase requisition to the vendor. That's the case. Okay. So manual reorder point with BOM VB. So manual reorder point for materials with bill of materials explosion capability. So that means basically what happens is you have a material, for example, chips packet. And under the chips packet, you will have particularly, how do we say? You'll have a chips packet which you manufacture chips and you give the covers to the vendor, and the vendor will provide the packet chips packet back to you so that you can sell, right? So then in that case, what happens is you will have to for the material for the BOM. When what is BOM? What are the materials that are required to manufacture the chips packet? So for one chips packet, you need 100 grams of chips and then one cover, right? So those two are the bill of materials. So basically, what is bill of materials? Bill of materials is any material or components that are required to manufacture or assemble a particular finished material. Okay, this is called the bill of materials. So the bill of materials will be also planned as per the requirement when we have the MRP type VB. So what I mean to say with this, you understood, right? PD, V1, V2, and VB. There are different MRP types. Of course, you have something called VM, you see, forecast based. So there would be any forecast coming into the system, but that is basically the independent requirement. Based on the historical consumption, you will maintain a forecast. Based on that, you will order the stock requirements. So what I mean to say here is that there are different concepts that you have where you will have this forecast based planning and or the real demand based planning, etc., etc. So those are all something that depends on the type of MRP that you need to run for what type of materials. It's not like for every material you need to have it, right? You can have it for specific materials also, specific process. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. So these are the different types of MRPs that we have. And then you see here there is a comparison that we have kept for you to understand, where you will see plan driven process, where you'll have the demand on demand particular source from sources like plan independent requirements, sales orders, and consumption based. You'll have V1, V2, VB based on past consumption, right? Then you'll have forecast based, where we'll have statistical forecasting models that will be working as for us. So these are the different concepts that we have. So here is the point that we have. Basically what happens is the concept which we need to work upon, right? So the concept is basically here you have how the MRP planning runs. So these are different ways, so you need not to worry much. For example, I just quoted some examples. So this is something that you need to understand basically, I mean to say. So by looking at this on the concept that we understood, right? So we need to we need to look at how the next process that we have, and then we need to look at basically. So the next steps that we have is about different processes. But before we go there, I would like to explain some SAP setups basically. Okay. For example, that's not something there in the PPT that but to cover the next steps that I thought I'll cover here. For example, there is particular specific transaction called MM01 where you will see create material. And there is specific transaction called MM02 change material and specific transaction called MM03 display material. So in SAP, the transactions are defined in such a format that 01, 02, 03 create change display. Same way, if you want to create an purchase order, ME21N. Here you see create purchase order, right? Then you want to go to ME22N, change purchase order, and you will have display in ME23 slash an ME22N is change purchase order. Usually it should come as change unless you don't have an access. Let me go. If there is no purchase order in the system, then it will. Now we do have. So you want to go, you can mean change purchase order. The same way display. And then the same way you can have go to VA01, create sales document. VA02, change sales order. Then VA03, display sales order. So you'll have this create change display documents in this way. So we go to create material. And in order to create a material, you need to give the material number, or you can give the fields like which industry it belongs to. So any industry, aerospace, automobile, anything that it belongs to, you can say. Okay. So let me call it as, for example, mechanical engineering. And material type, what type of a material it is. It's a raw material, finished, semi-finished, what type of a material it is. So you'll have different materials, for example, you see. And of course, there would be a unique codes from with which you can identify. So that's not visible here. Let me add it. SAP GUI settings options. Here we go to interaction design, visualization 1. Show keys drop downs. Apply. Okay. Here then we go. So you see OH is a raw material by standard SAP. You can create. You can just click enter. If that's an internal part number, it will show. Then you can see what is the basic data, then sales data that is required, and then you can have the purchasing data, then MRP 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you can have the general data 1, 2, accounting 1, 2. So what are this? This material, if you want to do a sales, you need the sales views. That because in sales data of that particular material exists in this view. If you want to purchase this material, then purchasing is required. If you want to plan, manufacturing planning or the metal planning is required for this, then you need these views. Storage, general storage. Accounting, the price details of it will be stored. So this is how different views will be required. And if you click OK, it will ask you in which plant, which storage location. If you remember, we have created the ZAR1 storage location, right? So sales organization also, we created ZAR1. And distribution channel, I think I did not create any. Oh, there is one. That's fine then, right? So because this material, in what plants, what storage locations it's being maintained, we need to know. We need to have the data, right? So that's how you see material planning, arc levels are maintained at this time level. Okay. Next. So next is basically here we have click enter. So material is just said to be productive, must be set productive for valuation area ZAR1. Okay, give me a second. To productive. CKM start. This is a new plan that I've created, right? So there might be some setups that will be missing. No problem. That you need not to worry much. That you go to make the literature active. Trying to remember. OM. No. OMX1, OMX2, OMX1. Maybe I think. Let's try X1. Yep, literature activation. So let's go to the plant. Ready R1, company code. So okay, ledger active, save, price determination, transaction based or single multi-level. Anything is right was saved. Then go to start. This is something technical finance terms, guys. You need not to worry much in order to use the material that it will be required. Okay. There is some finance setup problem, you don't worry. We'll use a different set of data. We'll use 0001, basic data 1, sales 2, sales 3, purchasing, MRP 1, 2, 3, 4, general plant 1, 2, accounting 1, 2, 001, 001, 01. So here you can give the org units, then you'll give the description. What is the description of the material? So Finch screw like this. Anything, whatever the description it is, you can give. And then you can give it this is with 35 characters length. So you see, around 40 characters max it has come. So next, basic unit of measure. So basic unit of measures are basically in which units of measure you want this material to be measured. So for example, each metal group is how do you classify the materials that you want. Select anything. Old metal number, like you bring the materials from old materials, then how this old metal number is something you need to look. Okay. So you can put any number basically. So it can be automatic or manual or anything. Okay. Next, if there are any fields with asterisk symbol, you need to fill because those are the mandatory fields. If you don't fill it, SAP will give an error. Let's go to the sales views where you will give what is the base unit of measure and then any other sales data views like sales fields that you need to determine if the tax is what, tax code, right? And then anything specific fields like what is the sales unit in which you will sell, etc. you can maintain. And then any specific sales data that is particularly required you can maintain. For example, this will ask, I'll maintain, you need not to maintain for now. What's the value that it is here? Okay. Then you have the sales general plant view where you'll have the different requirement, different data that you need, you can maintain. And then purchasing availability check, availability check of the stock of materials, daily requirements you can put. Profit center you want to maintain, you can put it. So here comes the purchasing data where you will see specifically like who is the purchasing group of the material, like who will be the responsible purchasing for this material. That will be the purchasing responsibility, I would say, right? So who will be responsible for purchasing of material. Then you'll have different other fields like if the material is maintained in batches or is it something that's there is an auto PO process, right? Or the purchase value key. So there are different fields which you need to GR processing time, like after the material is received, how much time it takes for the GR processing, right? That's one. And then you will have MRP type 1. So MRP1, MRP2, MRP3, MRP4. So these are the MRP views that you will have basically, okay? The MRP views are something that will govern how the material requirement planning has to be done. So here the MRP type will put PD. Then system will ask you the MRP controller. So you'll select one MRP controller, whoever is there for now. Okay. Then lot size procedure. So lot size procedure is basically you'll have in what lots you want to buy. So it's basically the lot for lot fixed quantity is what we say. Then you click enter. Plan delivery time, how much time it takes from the vendors, from the vendor to reach out to our company location is called the plan delivery look type days. So I'm just clicking on enter to for the new field, all the views. So here you see plan data or storage location. Then here storage locative view. So if there are any mandatory fields, you click enter, system will show you. Okay. Next, accounting one, valuation class is a mandatory field. So valuation class we need to put it. Standard price of the material you want. One I have kept in the currency that we have. So I'm just saving the material. So once you try to save, the 2505 material number will be used. So 2505 material number would be given. So for this material, whatever we have, the unique material number comes so that you can identify and then you can give that material whenever you procure or sell or restore everything. So that's the easiest way. Okay. So next is basically what we have is the material is created, right? 2505. The same way you can have the vendor created. So vendor is in S4 are called business partners basically. So let's store the material number as 2505. Let's create one more. 2505 material, and then you'll have business partner. So you can create your business partner as an organization first, and then you will extend them to the different roles. So let's see through that later. But for now, let's select an vendor BP group. Just give me a second. I'm checking which one to use. Maybe this is okay too. So you're trying to create a business partner. Here we'll give the name of the vendor. For example, Tata Motors is a vendor to us, right? All the asterisk fields will be mandatory. So first we create them as a business partner. And once we create the business partners, we will extend them, this business partners, into the roles. FLV, you see, supplier company code data, supplier purchase org data. So we'll go them to the supplier purchasing data or supplier company code data, where you will see the mandatory fields that you need to fill, like in which company codes this vendor will operate. For example, if we have the 0001 supplier, right? So you don't worry much about it. I'm like, you don't know certain things, so that's okay. I'm just showing for now how this looks, how this data looks, so that you will understand. Okay, so you're maintaining the company code data. Okay, so you see this is a business partner that is created, and this business partner is our vendor also. And then you want to have the purchasing data also maintained. You can go to the purchasing data of the particular vendor. If the mandatory field system will give an error, else you can close, save. I'm just saving so that you'll understand how the metals and how the vendors looks, right? So now you see the changes are there, metal is there, vendor is there. So now you can do a procurement with this vendor basically. Okay, so this is vendor. So you will see a vendor, this guy, purchase organization, which we use, right? 0001, P group 1, company code 0001. That's okay. Here, what are you creating? When you're creating a purchase order, you're giving whom you're ordering it. Now you will give which material you will order. 2025 material, right? 2505, sorry. 2505 material. How much quantity? 100. By when? By tomorrow. Net quantity is 100. You can give and click enter. If there are any errors, system will give. Currency is something we are giving USD, in which we are ordering. Enter a plant. Plant is 0001 we are ordering. So all okay. If there are any errors, system will give you an error warning. If there is no errors, then you can proceed. So it says enter a plant, which we have entered, and purchase order still contains errors. Why? We entered the plant, right? But what's the problem here? What's the problem? 001 plant is not taking. Why? It should take ideally. Let me just check the configuration, because we should not get this error ideally. So logistics general SPR or logistics management. We have defined delete, copy delete check plant. Let me go back. Not this one. Define plant. Do we have the 0001? Yes, we have the 0001. But why is this? Don't have it. Okay. Someone deleted this. It looks like. Let me recreate it. That's okay. Let me close and give 0001 plant here. Oh, it doesn't take. Let me try to create again. Okay. This vendor, from this vendor, we are trying to order a material. 500 quantity. Delivery date is tomorrow. 100 quantity. 0001. And something. This thing is not being taken. Why? Why the plant is not being taken? But that's okay, no problem. You can just open. I'll open any other purchase order and show you how this looks. So you are ordering this particular material, this particular vendor, this particular stock, right? This is how the purchase order screens looks in SAP. You see, this vendor, this purchase organization, this company code. You are using this particular material, or here there is an asset being ordered. How did I get to know? So there is an asset here. You see the account assignment category. So you will have an asset ordered also. So for that asset, you can order assets for which you can have a cost, and then you can have receipt. So basically, these are the different types of processes that we have. Okay. So this is how the standard purchase order concepts looks like, where you will see, you have seen the purchase order, right? This is the purchase order that we have. You can see. So this purchase order is basically something you want to send an output. You can add an email or IDOC output, and you can send to the vendors or customers. Okay. So purchase order is something, in order to do the purchases, you need the vendors and you need the materials and you need this org setup also to be done. So you need the org data structure, you need the master data, then you can do the transactional data. That's why you need the org data and master data before you do the transactions. Okay, that's more important. Then next is about, particularly if we talk about, there is something called sales data as well, right? Like you have the procurement data, then you will have the sales data as well. So sales data as well also looks pretty similar. You'll have a sales order. Okay. So select any sales order and just display it so that you can see. So here you see purchase order is when you need stock, right? And sales order is for when you have to sell a particular product to the customer. So particular purchase order is something you're buying, sales order is something you're selling. If we see the concept of purchase order and sales order, right? Then what happens is, here you see in the sales order you will have who is the sold to party, ship to party. Then we have the concept of sold to and ship to parties, where you will see this sold to party is the concept of who are we selling to. Ship to party is who are we delivering it to, because both cannot be same also in certain business cases. Okay. Next. So here you will see, for example, the sales particular line item data. This material, this is being ordered. Okay. So this material we are ordering, and which plant the customer is ordering in which plant, and when is the first delivery date. All these details will be given. Okay. So this is the one. So if you double click to schedule lines, you will see how much quantity is required when and all. So here comes the question as, this sales order is created, right? What happens next is you'll have, for example, if it is a purchase order, for the particular purchase order, you will have the delivery of, you'll have the delivery coming from the vendor. You receive the stock. Then the vendor will invoice. The vendor will invoice you. You will post the invoice, and you will do the payment because you're buying it, right? Whereas in a sales cycle, what happens is you'll have the sales order from the customer. You will deliver the stock. Okay, you will deliver the stock to the customer, and then the vendor you will also, for the customer, you will also do the invoicing. You will send the billing document where the customer will do the payment to you. So the reverse of the procurement that we do, right? So this is the concept of procurement, I would say, differently being handled. So you will have standard sales order process where you will sell the stock, and you also have the standard, what we say, the standard purchase process where you can buy as well. Okay, that's good then. So like this, you have different processes of different steps which you can work about as well. Like for example, if you go to /OMD04, for example, for this TG1111 material, this is the stock requirements at any given point in time it will show. So this is the stock requirements that at any given point in time you will have the for the materials that it will show. So this material in this plant, what are the stocks that you have, what are the requirements that you have for the material, what are the orders that you have, those all will be visible here. So you see, for this point in time, for example, at 6, let's say that what we say at this 18 hours point in time, so how much stock we have for the material? 1508 quantities of pieces of quantity that we have for this metal. Okay, in 1010 plant. You can have it in other plants also, like whatever the plants this metal is being operated in. You can have 1710, where you can see how much stock you have is available quantity. It's huge quantities, lots of quantities you have for this material here. You see available quantities, sir. It's being ordered in lots of quantities, where you will see this particularly if there are any particular purchase equations open for this material also being visible. So that's good. Okay, that's nice as well then. So this is how the screen looks, where you will have the stock requirements, and even particularly the procurement proposals being generated also shows. So, and then even the stock that you have in SAP for this particular material also can be seen in different transactions, because that's the more important thing, right? So how much stock you have, based on that you will act accordingly. So for example, there is a transaction called stock overview, which we denote by the transaction called MMBE. So if you go to that particular transaction, so you will see how much stock you have, and it will also show surprisingly. So you see, right, at a plant level you want to see, and in that particular plant, what is the each storage location level stock that you have will also be visible. And for example, 171A, 171D, 171H, these are all the different storage locations that you have. So in these particular storage locations, how much stock you have is something being shown, right? And then also you see something like, for example, unrestricted stock, quality management stocks. Like whenever you have the receipt, you can receive the stock, basically, how do we say? So you will have a quality inspection to be done for the material. You can have the quality inspection done, and so that the stock directly goes to quality inspection. Then for you, from the quality inspection, you move it to the unrestricted stock, right? And on order stock is basically the stock that you have specifically that is ordered and then is yet to be delivered. So whatever you ordered and then the stock is yet to be delivered, right? That's something you're waiting for, is called the on order stock. All right. Next comes is about the manufacturing process as well, which will not cover much about it here, but the sales and the purchase process that we have here. So the sales and purchase process specifically talks about, how do we say, the integration between different business processes, which you can see in single transactions, right? How much stock you have and how much requirements you have, everything specifically in this MD04 is a very powerful transaction. So you see the supply chain is something you can control with these transactions, where you can have an overall overview of the supply chain that is running in your business, and then the requirements at any given point in time, at the stock or receipts that are yet to come, on order reservations that are yet to come, customer orders that you have, right? Everything will be visible. So this is something that on a very high level we wanted to cover and show you how and give a flavor of SAP, how the look and feel how the look and feel of particularly the procurement and sales parts. Of course, this is the very basic introduction that you have been into. There are lots of things that we would that are something that we have, but of course that would be very burdening tasks for you to understand everything on day one, so or maybe as a beginner. But this is the overall understanding on the supply chain or the logistics processes of both procurement and sales that we have. And in the further upcoming classes, we will also talk about different other topics in the SAP hands-on, and then we'll move on to specifically what we say, and then we'll specifically move on to the other topics as well.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
So we are going to talk about or continue about more on the SAP practice in system, and we will touch more on again the procurement and sales flows a bit deeper, like how to create and then the cycle in a very, very crisp manner. And then we will continue about what to know what is a bit on what is ABAP as a tool, so on a very high level, and then we'll be going to the next topics as well in this session. So the agenda for today would be more on covering the practical SAP process where we left off yesterday. Okay, I mean not yesterday or today, it's basically the past session, I mean to say. Okay, so moving forward, what I'll do is I'll go more into the SAP so that now today you'll understand a bit more. So I have identified a data set yesterday from yesterday's or the past class to today's class. Okay, so I will try to use the data set and create a new set of data in both procurement and sales so that you will understand. So what I'll do is, for example, in procurement and sales, in anywhere in SAP, even in finance, etc., you can copy an existing data, like you have a purchase order and you want to order the same materials with same vendors again. You can copy that and change the data, or you can create a fresh brand new data as well. So I'll show both the scenarios, maybe one in procurement and one in sales, then you'll understand how it looks. For example, if I go to ME23N, it's a display purchase order transaction where I would like to display the existing purchase order. Okay, so let me take this purchase order. You see, this purchase order is something I have. So here you go to other purchase order and you give the purchase order and click on other document. It will show you the purchase order that is already created. Okay, so here you see basically there is a purchase order which is created to this vendor on this date. Okay, what are we sending? What are we are sorry, what are we ordering in the purchase order? Let me go and show. Scroll down, you will see here, you will see a material. This material of 12 pieces of on delivered to be delivered on this date in net price with right at this price, and then at this plant and this storage location you are ordering. So this kind of details you're ordering. So what we can do is any data, like if you want to order the same again, you can, if you remember this purchase orders that you already have, you can copy and create, or you can directly give the data and create also. So let me show you that. For example, I'll click on create. Okay, so I'm not going much technically deeper so that you will get confused, because it's the pretty initial sessions where you'll try to see and get a feel of how the SAP transactions happen. Okay, so here if you click like this, if you give a play space bar, right, any data that is given will be coming up, but I don't want to use that. So here I'll give a vendor. Okay, this is something I've noted down in my notepad after finding in the system. Okay, whatever is good data. Here it will ask the org data in which organization and all. All of my organization I am picking is 1010. So every time you give an input on the data, you click enter on your keyboard, or you can click on check, so that SAP will give you and let you know if there are anything that is missing or that is required. For example, here you go and give the material. You want to give a metal space bar. Last time given metals will come. You want to copy and give the material. You can give the material, then you can give the quantity, 12 quantity, right? Delivery date, as let's suppose today date. Of course, it's not realistic because same day delivery is not about it. It's not something Amazon, right? And you have 10 euros price, and then plant as 1010. Okay, you can give all these details. Of course, in storage location, you want to give any storage location, you can give the storage location. For example, 3001 is okay here, right? Then the effective price of the material is coming up like this. So this is the minimum data. So now if you click on check, if there are any warnings, system will give. If there are any errors also, system will provide you. But if there are none, then system will show you there are no messages and you can save. So this is how the purchase order is, like very basic purchase order I'm showing you, where you can see you want a printout also to be sent, you want to have an email output also, you can use it. Okay, it's up to us. You want to use an external send email with an PO attachment, that can also be done. So for now, if I take a step back, this is the basic purchase order that we are creating and save. It will generate a unique number in SAP because you have to identify this purchase later, right? So that for that you will have a purchase order. So here you see there is a purchase order that is already created. So this purchase order, if you go to other purchasing document and enter, you will see the purchasing order, you will see the purchase order details. And if you go to the messages, you will see an print output generated. Here you will see the print output, right? Select it. And you want to see if there is any PO form that will show further data processing, etc. Oh, once it's loading, I think. Give me a second. Let me take a step back. That's not showing up properly. You see, this is the purchase order print. That's selected. It's going away. Fine. Okay, here we have the purchase order that is created, and that will be either you can print out and send it, or you can send an email directly in SAP also. So for this particular purchase order, what are the next steps when you send a purchase order to the vendor? He will give the goods to you. So that goods you will do in MIGO, goods receipt. In MIGO, you will have a goods receipt. So in this transaction, you will go for goods receipt, purchase order, give the purchase order and line item. So basically, everything you need to give, right? Because here we have created only one purchase order with one line item. But what happened? I hope the session is being recorded. I got a message that Zoom is not responding, but okay, seems this is okay. All good. We can continue. So here you see there is only one line item. So here we go now. Then, so here there is a delivery note if that is required. Okay. So delivery note is basically what's happening. System is behaving in a different way now. Okay, all good. So here you will see the delivery note, anything that you can give what vendor has given to you. Okay. So and then you click enter, it will give all the details basically. If you scroll down, you will see the material that came up, right? It will give the material, quantity, where, in which plant we are taking, you see in which plant, which storage location, and then here also in which against which purchaser we are taking, it will come. So if you click on item OK, it will click on check. Then system will give if there are any errors to receive the stock for this material. So you click on post, what happens? The stock will increase for this material. Okay, the stock will increase for this material, and then you want what the next step that will come is invoice. The vendor will try to invoice us. So /MIRO, where we will have the invoice coming up. So whenever the invoice comes from the vendor, that we will try to post it in SAP. Where it is asking the company code to which the invoice should be posted. I'm just saying it's 1010 what we have. Okay. So the invoice date is basically today. Okay, it can be prior also now as well, and then you will give the PO reference here just for the reference. Okay, and you click enter. System will itself will propose you. If you scroll down, then you will see here, or you can see here the PO number and line item. You click enter, it will fetch all the details that we have. It will fetch all the details that we have. Okay, so now what it's the total figure is 12 piece into whatever the price is, total 240 euros is coming up. So we have to just nullify that amount. 240 we'll say is what something we are posting the invoice for. Okay, here we have this. Now you want to click on post, you can post the invoice. See this? You see invoice is posted. Now if I close the screen and close the screen, now if I go to purchase order and just click refresh, that means basically other purchase order, and I just click enter. So here you will see the purchasing documents already got updated with the purchase order history. Okay, here you see the purchase orders with goods receipt and invoice receipt. The details are updated here. So this is basically the what we say. This is basically the purchase cycle that we have in the system, right? I hope you understood. Next, what we have is basically this is the purchasing cycle that we have seen, right? We'll also see a sales cycle. Okay, so we'll also see a sales cycle. Next, if you want to see a sales cycle, the transactions are different, right? So for example, I'll open an existing sales order. Which one is that? Which one is that? I have created one yesterday. Let me see. 6407. Let's for 6407. 6407 is a sales order, which you see there is a sale for a material happening. And for this customer, this details, right? So of course you can create a sales order like I have created the purchase order, like with all new details you can create, or you can copy as well. I'll show you how. So 6407 sales order, right? If I go to VA01, it will ask the document type, or is the document type standard SAP document type that we need to pick. Create with reference, here we go, and then if I give 6407 and click enter, copy, so it will get copied all the details that we have in the existing sales order. So here you see the line item details. For example, if I scroll up, you will see something like sold to party, shipped to party, customer reference. It will ask, like for example, I will say customer 1 or something. Anything is fine. You can write anything. It doesn't ask for. And then you will have, if you double click on the line item, you will go to the details like schedule lines, when the stock has to come, be delivered, etc. So we are saying today's date is when the stock has to go, or then the delivery date needs to be updated to today's date, right? This is an old sales order. So system, we are picking the old sales order date, but we are saying one quantity has to be delivered on 29th. Okay. So this is the point. And then you create a sales order save. So the sales order will be created. So you see 6408 is there. I'll go to display sales order. Okay. So the sales order is copied with the existing sales order, right? That's how we are preparing. So you can do anything. Basically, you can create a sales order, you can copy a sales order basically, and you can create it. It's same in purchase orders also, etc. So for this sales order, if you want to do any delivery and billing, like basically what happens is for purchase order, you will get a goods receipt, right? Whereas for sales order, what will happen? You will do a goods issue because you need to sell this, you're selling the goods, right? So now here, if you see, now you will have an option to deliver. So for the sales order, you will create a delivery. Okay, here you have the option. Here you can select the line item and click on post goods issue. Like you can create a delivery with all with, of course I'm just showing the basic details, like it will allow you to post a document, but you can give the details specifically what you want as well. So for now, what I'm saying here is you can select and click on post goods issue directly, so that the delivery will be created and post goods issue will be done as well. So copying this delivery number, right? For example, if you go to display delivery and you will go here and you want to change, for example, you want to change delivery and try to do PGA again, system will give an error if it's already PGA done, goods issue has been done. So outbound delivery is where you will have the outbound delivery created. Outbound delivery is for the stock movement outside, and then post goods issue is basically the point where you will issue the goods outside of the system. Okay. Then for this outbound delivery, you want to do a billing because you have to bill the supplier. Sorry, bill what we say customer as well, right? You can do that. For example, slash and VA03. If I go this, and here itself you can select. You can go to billing document. You can go for billing on from sales order level as well. Okay. So F1 is the one, and then billing date is today. Billing date is, let's consider today. It's not picking, that's fine. Then what we do is let's go to VF01 and let's try with an outbound delivery. Delivery based billing might be active, don't worry there. So if we click enter, system should find the details. Yes, it found. And then we click save. So this is the simplest way of doing the transactions, guys. You'll have many complexions, many scenarios, etc. coming in, which you need to consider. Okay. So here we have the document, and now you go back to the sales order. You will be able to see this particularly slash VA03. I'll display. So here you will have the document history, document flow, where you can see the sales order created, that particular sales order outbound delivery is generated, and then invoice is also generated, and accounting documents are also generated. So this is how the flow, you see, completed, cleared. This is how the flow also looks. So I hope you understood that you can create a brand new document with all the material vendors or materials and customers, or also you can also copy the existing data and you can create as well. So it's up to you how you do it. So this is what the purchase and sales cycle looks like team. So, and then of course you have similar cycles in every module, like for example, finance, manufacturing, warehouse, plant maintenance. So there are different streams in which different modules or different business processes where you will have different cycles. Of course, this is also one cycle in that we have seen in procurement and the very basic cycle in sales. You'll have different other processes in others also. So I hope you got the gist and feel right of how SAP looks and how SAP functions, what are the transaction space, like what are the master data, what are the org units, what are the transactions, how you use based on the units that you have, right? So that's what how it looks. And next steps is something that we will discuss a bit on how the ABAP transactions looks as well, right? Like not the transactions, what is ABAP and what is more about that you need to learn the basics of ABAP as well. So here are the transactions that we have talked about. Next, let's move back to this will cover the cycles that we have covered for in the from order to cash. If you see, right, sales order will be created for the customers when they order. You'll have outbound deliveries. Outbound deliveries are something basically the transactions that are created to send the before we send the stock for dispatch, right? So for the outbound delivery, because shipment is moving out, right, you will have to have an outbound delivery. So the outbound delivery and the post goods issue, basically you'll have an post goods issue to be done. Okay, because for the outbound delivery, for the sales order, you will create an outbound delivery when the stock is supposed to be gone out. For the outbound delivery, which is created where the stock has to go out, then you will create a post goods issue. That means you will issue the goods in the warehouse or your storage location, and then from there you will have the customer invoice. Okay, so you'll have a customer invoice to be generated because you'll have to invoice the customer and they'll pay for your stock what you have sold, right? And then incoming payment, the finance will receive the payment for what you have sold. So overall, this is the point. And then we have this, you see the details of the sales order process where you have seen the transaction SBA01 to create, right? And then you will have the sales order document type. You can give the details and you can create, right? With all the details you need to input. But what we have, and you can see the delivery schedules, etc., that are required also we have seen when the delivery date is. Correct? So now here you see the create once the sales order is created, you will have the material availability. Then of course there are some specific fields in the sales order which we did not discuss specifically, but here you can see that would be good where the delivery date, goods you have a goods issue date, loading date, material availability date, transportation planning date, etc. So goods issue date is basically when you want to issue the goods. Loading date is when you want to load the stock, right? Before you issue the goods. And then material availability is by when you have to have the availability so that you can load and goods issue. And transportation planning date is by when you will have the transportation planning to be done. All of them has to be in sync, right? So basically you have to have a material availability, then loading, then goods issue. And by the same time, you should also have the transportation also. This is something that comes in the sales you have to plan. And then the shipping points where the stock has to go out from, and price, which one you have to sell at what price and with the price markup for margin for our company, right? And of course, if there are any new sales inquiries, how do we maintain the sales inquiries? Or and then you have to give the quotation as well, right? With that quotation, sales will convert into an what we say sale, and then for the sale you will have an invoice that you can send. So this is how the details are something that are written here where you can go into the details. And there is an important concept in sales as well that comes as around like the availability checks. So availability check, for example, you have seen the material planning, right? Material planning for if there is something less you can procure and how you can procure, what are the MRP types, etc. The same way in sales that you there is an important concept called availability checks as well. So what is this availability checks is basically checking rule on what basis like availability check is do you have stock to by the time the customer orders, not today, maybe in the future as well, right? So checking, there is a concept of called checking availability check, availability to promise we call, right? ATP or ATP checks, where in that there is a specific fashion where the availability checks will be done on do we have stock, do we have suppliers, if we are insufficient, you will have all the process to be in place, right? What are the configurations that are there are specific configurations to refine this as well. You need not to worry much, but we need to have this what we say availability checks to be defined for sales. For it's more important for them to handle the particular sales process because they need to be assured that the stock is available when they promised a stock particular delivery on a particular date to the customer, right? So there are different more ways of doing this, like automatic checks or manual checks, right? So that can be done. And then, yes, I think it's the same: sales order, manufacturing, outbound delivery, and then post issuing the goods and customers, right? So this is like much theory. I'm going on a very high level. You need not to worry much because we have seen board a lot in the system, right? You have a billing documents where you have a billing that is sent for the outbound delivery, right? So this is overall more on the sales and the procurement cycle of two modules we have seen, right? SAP MM and SAP S. And you have also different other modules like finance and EWM and all are different things. But we will also now maybe going, these are functional modules, right? MM and ST and finance and all. Now there is one technical module in SAP which is called SAP ABAP, Advanced Business Application Programming is the definition of this. So this ABAP is a module which helps you, right? I repeat, this ABAP is a module that helps you to understand and complete and complete the custom coding requirements of SAP. Like in any of the SAP modules, if there are any custom coding requirements that we have, right, then those can be achieved by having an ABAP coding. So if SAP will give the code by default for every business transaction, but if there is any business transactions in which the business process can't be achieved in standard SAP, then there is this ABAP developers that we have in SAP who will do this developments so that the business can use the customized transactions or customized business process. So that's what something we will see in more in ABAP. Of course, I'm not an ABAP expert because if you remember, I told you need to be having an expertise in one module in SAP is good, but maybe 2-3 modules is something that you will be good at, but it's not something like you can have all the modules of SAP, all the business process you can learn easily. That's because SAP itself is an ocean. That's something you need to understand. Okay. So in ABAP, we will cover on a very high level what it is, how it is, and etc. Okay, and then we'll switch to the other topics that we have as well. So moving forward, so preparing the development environment is what we say, where you will see there is a development, quality, and production environments. In development environment, we will do the configurations by the functional consultants, and coding will be done by the ABAP consultants. So ABAP cloud project is to first install the SAP BTP. BTP is the business. This is a version of this development Eclipse now SAP is developing, where you can develop, you will do the developments in BTP. And in the different, I mean, ABAP projects, there are different types of ABAP projects, SAP says, where Eclipse wise, you can see where you will see Eclipse as a development environment isn't embedded into SAP and ABAP system. Instead, it connects to all SAP systems. So you see there are different ABAP systems, and Eclipse is the one which will connect to all ABAP systems as ABAP Cloud, ABAP On-Premise, etc. Right? Of course, it can be On-Premise or Cloud. So ABAP on-premise is something, where the on-premise data cloud data structures will be there, and then cloud are basically what we say you will have different cloud-based environments working on connecting to both SAP BTP ABAP, right? So moving on. ABAP environments are basically something like on the BTP, you will have an ABAP instance where you can log in and you can work. So BTP is a platform, business technology platform of SAP is something that is being used widely today for all the developments and processes. Okay. And of course, when you look at how do you look at the ABAP environment or what it is technically being said here. Basically, SAP ABAPers also will have the same login as what we logged in as a functional consultant there, where they'll do the coding development required for that required. So here SAP Business Technology Platform is SAP's PaaS. So it's a platform as a service. So it will provide a platform where you will do your coding requirements. So there will be a coding global account for the BTP, which you can access it. Subscription models vary for large scale or single scale users, because it's a subscription based cloud tool. And global, and to this SAP BTP, you can have an ABAP on premise also connected. Don't worry about it. And global account contains one or more sub accounts. Yes, you can have multiple sub accounts, sub processes where your cloud foundry, etc. can be done. Okay. And then how ABAP looks. For example, you see working on the Project Explorer ABAP development objects, you will usually display the contents of the page in the Project Explorer, where you will see favorite packages. You can see what are the packages that we have in ABAP, and then in this project, what are the coding that you will be do. Okay. So here there are some screenshots from the system that you will have, right? For example, how it looks, how it feels, like how the code looks is something that we have here. You can see any So basically here you have, this is how the coding looks. This is where like the logic is written, right? And then in the logic you will see, you can go on to the debugging mode and find out what the code is and how the behavior is as well. Okay. And you will have a software component packages as well, where the repositories are stored. Okay, and you can have multiple packages in each component, where the ABAP, for example, if you see what we have written here is, every ABAP development object must be assigned to a package that groups related objects. So you will have an ABAP development must be assigned to a group, to a package that groups related objects. Packages belongs to software components and all objects together from ABAP repository. Okay, these objects are often called repository objects and are organized using namespaces. Okay, so there are the custom namespaces we give for the repository object, like, and most importantly, remember guys, anything in the SAP that you configure or you can customize, the name we give is all with Z. So it's that's something, any document types you configure or any custom material types, material groups, right? Anything you configure, that we'll give it Z or Y, because universally it's the naming space and naming space or the naming convention that we follow, that in SAP, that we, anything which starts with Y or Z is something a custom configured by a consultant or a custom coded by a ABAP consultant, is what we understand. Okay. Then transport request is basically, you remember in the customizing I have shown in the configuration, that if there is any change, configuration changes done, that will be have to be transported to the quality and production environments using the transport request. So there will be a customizing request we call for the configurations, but there will be an different type of transport request that we have for the developments. So this development transport request is basically for any piece of code that the developer has written, that changes has to move to quality and production as well, right? So that we can test and use in production. So this transport request is one, like all the piece of code that is written will be captured in, and then using that there will be, you can have the changes moved by the basis team for the transport to quality and production. Of course, the creating the ABAP packages, etc. So this is like basically how the ABAP package will be creation, and then how the setup of ABAP can be done, which you can learn in detail if you want to go for ABAP, but not now. Okay. So okay, it's like you see, right, in any language or anywhere you want to learn coding, they start with a hello world. So this hello world is something that you can also use to in ABAP also to test and develop yourself. But before we go deep into that, now the next things, the couple of things that with very important we need to inform you is about, like AI, AI in SAP. So there is something called Joel. Joel for developers is what your is an AI assistant SAP is giving. So Joel for consultants, it's called J for C, and Joel for developers, it's called J4D. So this is where the SAP's AI, the chat GPT of SAP is called Joel. Let's call this way, right? So you see, they say, imagine you are a new developer on an ABAP project. You are faced with understanding coexisting code, generating initial versions of ABAP code, or implementing new features, right? Instead of spending a lot of time actually analyzing or something, you can use SAP ABAP AI capabilities to help you development. So generative AI is changing ABAP development by providing tools that can help developers be more productive and create smarter business applications. So this Joel, for developers, is very good for the ABAP developers to develop the and in or work in easier way. It helps. And whereas if it's, there will be an AI coding assistance, you see main features of Joel that you have SAP provides, and then amplifying development with AI. So you when you use ghost action ABAP code predicted by cursor and content. So basically you can have all the good help required by SAP from the AI. Okay. And then even in, for example, you will see in core customer configurations also, Joel for consultants, for functional also we have, even functional consultants also take help of Joel. Okay. And then you will have an APIs as well, connectivities with different module with different systems that you can connect. The SAP as a system can connect to different applications to using the API connectivity method, which is written here. Okay. So this is all the very basics of the ABAP that we have learned through, right? We did not go into the system, but we have learned through on the high level. This is how it looks, and this is how it you can run. Having said that, with this knowledge, we will move on to the final set of course, where we would like to inform you, or we would like to let you know that how do you get started yourself in SAP, which is most important thing. Of course, we have explained you what are the basics of SAP, what is SAP, how is SAP, right? How do you log into SAP? How do you configure SAP? How do you maintain data? how do you do the transactions in SAP, and then what are the functional technical modules that are present in SAP, all of them are covered. Now comes the time is how do you actually yourself get started in SAP? That's the most important thing, right? So let's talk about it now. Of course, the disclaimer, like in every slide we talk, right? It's a copyright of ZaranTech, which should not be reused or transmitted in any of the forms. Now, the agenda, sole agenda of the going forward time of the talk class will be about how do you get started in SAP. So first, just to summarize and then to take you forward in a good way, what is SAP and why does it matter? So SAP is a leading ERP product or a platform, right? So what is ERP? Enterprise Resource Planning. So SAP is a leading ERP platform or tool used by organizations worldwide to integrate all the business processes that you have. For example, finance, supply chain, sales, HR, marketing, manufacturing, and many other functions into single real-time system, right? So that means SAP is the one good big tool in the world where you can have all the business processes run by SAP itself, including and integrating every business process end to end. For example, sales to finance, procurement to finance, warehouse to manufacturing to finance to sales to procurement, right? Including HR functions together. So, and that too in real time. You can run your all business in real time where you can track your transactions, where you can report your transactions easily. Okay. So that's the biggest advantage of SAP, and that's how you can define SAP as well. So SAP offers different products such as we used to have an SAP ERP system called SAP ECC we call. It's ERP core component, and that has been upgraded to SAP S4 HANA, Suite for HANA, right? And then now SAP also has different tools. Not only these two, SAP has a standalone tool for HR operations called SuccessFactors, and SAP has a standalone tool for procurement called SAP Ariba, right? And then SAP also has customer experience. SAP has BTP extensions and integrations to support the latest innovations that you have in the market. And they connect with APIs also with different tools that are available. And next we move. What are the key points to cover here on this topic is SAP helps companies to standardize their process, improve data accuracy, and enable real-time reporting for better decision taking. So how is that done, right? So you standardize the process, like you have a defined process to be set. This is how that has to be up done in the system. If you have to do it in the SAP system, you have to have your company process also set, right, in a specific way. And then what are the data required for that process to run is something identified. It's called the data accuracy, because you should have the proper data to run in the IT systems. And it enables real time reporting for better decision making, because you will have any transactions happening in your business that will be updated in SAP, because you have to have a bookkeeping record. So when you pull up the transaction with reports, you will have all the transactions you want to see with the filter criterias. With you will see the reports that you require on how your business is running in any stream of business. Like you will talk about how much the spend is happening, then you can see the spend reports of purchase spend reports. And you want to see how much sales is happening for this particular division, you can have the reports to pull out the figures. And you want to see the manufacturing results of how much production is done, that you can pull out. And you want to pull up a report of how much that stock is lying in the warehouse, you can pull up a report. So this how SAP provides the standard reporting tools, which capabilities which help you to understand how your business is shaping. Of course, if the SAP standard reports doesn't work well for you, you can we with the help of ABAP developers, we can customize the reports as well for business. And next comes the next topic is SAP skills in are in demand across industries. So there are different industries where you will have your SAP skills in demand. For example, manufacturing, retail, banking, healthcare, IT services, automobile, aerospace and defense, automotives, right? OEMs, high tech. Then you have so every different industry that you have in the world needs an ERP tool. And SAP and the companies, if the companies are beyond a certain stage of business, they need an unified business tool to operate all the transactions. So that's wherein SAP helps and covers a lot. Next is, for example, if you see the career paths in SAP, right? The most important thing. So you can have different career paths in SAP. For example, an end user. So an end user is the person who will who will use SAP in everyday business transactions. For example, if you are working, there is a SAP implemented in a company and they are using SAP for their daily transactions. You as an end user, like you are a procurement guy, you're a sales guy, you're a warehouse guy, you as an end user will use your career path to use SAP for all the everyday business transactions. You should be having knowledge of business, like how the procurement runs. If you're in procurement space or you're in a sales space, then you update the transactions with the details that are required every day in, day out. Or you want to be a consultant. So consultant in the sense, like maybe like me, right? For example, you take, so I'm a consultant of a logistics consultant. So there will be finance consultants, there will be manufacturing consultants, there will be production planning consultants or experts, and then warehouse consultants. So our skill set is that we will configure the system for the first time and we will maintain the system as and when required. So whenever a new SAP implementation has to go, or an SAP upgrade has to happen for a client, or an SAP development process needs to be done, or the existing SAP implemented should be maintained. That means if there are any issues coming up right? So a support is to be done. All of them will be done by the consultants like me who will support. Okay, and then developers. Developers are the ones who will do the coding requirements that we have for during ABAP, and analysts the requirement, or the business analysts that to talk about the requirements, etc. And then administrators are the ones who will be the SAP basis administrators, who will be making sure to for the uptime of the system and smooth running of the system. So we will have different projects like implementation, support, and optimization, which we will be working as a consultants. I hope you are able to understand. And of course, consulting is SAP consulting is very good, where you will have much, I would say, growth in your career. So here you have the roles before you start your career in SAP. What are the roles that we have? Let's understand them. So the functional roles are basically functional professionals, right? Are the ones who focus on business process in specific areas. Like if you remember, I told you there will be consultants for each specific business process, like SAP FICO finance consultants, finance and costing. They cover the finance and costing. So procurement will be done by SAP metals management consultants. SAP SD, sales and distribution consultants, will cover the sales. Then SAP MFP, production planning, will cover the production requirements. SAP HR covers the human resource part of it. So these consultants work with users, directly the business users, to understand the business process and design the business process in a specific way, to an optimized way. And for this business process, we spoke the way we talk with the business. We will configure the SAP system, we will test the solution, we will support the solution when goes live, and even post go live, after the system goes live, any support on the issues tickets that comes, will also support. So this is how the functional SAP consulting role looks like. You pick a module like SAP SAP SD, SAP FICO, or EWM, anything, and in that business process, you need to understand all the business processes in that particular area. Okay. So those areas you have to understand the processes, you need to configure, you need to have an understand reply, you need to have an process knowledge. Using that, you will configure the SAP process for the client the way the client wants. And then you will test, the client will test, and then we will go live. Go live in basically like moving the changes to production, and the client starts using it. And when the client starts using it, any issues are identified, you will sort or rectify it. That's how the SAP consulting roles looks like, team, I would say. And then types of functional areas are, like we said, right? SAP FI, CO, MM, SD, PP, QM, and then HCM. It's all there here, which you can understand. So here you have the technical roles. For example, yes, there are not only the functional, there are technical roles as well, which we spoke, if you remember, in the ABAP concepts. So SAP ABAP developer. So they build custom programs, reports, and enhancements required for business. So SAP ABAP is a module where all the technical developers will be sitting in, and they'll be doing the development for the functional consultants whenever a requirement from business arises. That means there are lots of standard SAP business processes transactions that SAP has provided, but if by any chance, if any one of them does not have right? For any one of them does not have or it does not suit to the business requirements of any client, then the developers will do the custom developments. So SAP BTP integration developer works with APIs, integrations, extensions. So basically any connectivities to third party systems, etc. These developers will work with. Yeah. And next is basically the SAP basis or security or cloud. So SAP basis consultants handle system installation, performance, etc. Whereas the security SAP security team will do the security, cloud, user administration, or on-premise user administration, etc. will be done by them. Okay. The next slide would be more on analytics and cross-functional roles. For example, you will have an analytics roles, right? So the analytics role is basically you have SAP Analytics, BW Analytics Cloud, where you will see that it's more on the building the analytics capabilities. Like you'll need the businesses need lots and lots of reports in different modules to understand how the business is running or the how the on where or where are we on the business, right? So for that you have an SAP Analytics Cloud, SAC we call, okay, SAP Analytics Cloud is a module where you will have or the BW business warehousing or SAP Analytics or the modules in SAP where you will have reporting dashboards and data modeling created by them. So this is more on like similar to a Power BI or Tableau dashboards like you have in SAP for specifically for SAP. Then you have SAP project or delivery roles. For example, with a good experience of years, you will be able to manage a team. You will be able to understand what SAP implementations goes through. Then you will be having a roles like SAP project manager, cutover leads, test leads, change and training specialist, right? So SAP project or delivery roles will be is very very important crucial roles where the project managers will steer the project and then the cutover leads will be talking about like the whenever a go live happens, how the process has to be designed. And then you will also have a test leads where they lead the testing process that is required after developments or configurations, right? And change and training specialist, like whenever SAP is being implemented, your companies needs the change and training specialist to design the training model and define the training needs that the users should be trained about, right? So these are the different set of roles that you will have in an SAP world, where you will see that lots of scope in SAP in for your career. So what can be the backgrounds if you have to fit his is something that on a generic level is what is written here, okay, but it doesn't mean that you need to use the same. So for example, if you see the role type as functional, what happens here is your focus area would be more on business processes and configuration. So usually the BCom graduates or the commerce or finance backgrounds comes with MBA finance comes to the SAP FICO modules, or the MBA supply chain guys comes to the procurement, and then MBA marketing guys will come to the SAP sales, MBA HR will go to the SAP HR, and then so this because the reason is if you have an MBA, you will understand that particular business process, so you will be more fit to understand the client business needs and then configure in SAP when you learn SAP. And then if you have a domain experience in any of the areas, like you are a purchasing specialist in any of the company, for example, you in any of the companies, you are a purchasing manager or a purchasing specialist, or you are in sales delivery executive or sales delivery model operations you are aware of, then you will be having that good experience to learn SAP and complete. So this functional area expertise is where you will have a typical backgrounds can fit easily into the functional modules. Even if you're a BTech guy who understands any of these business processes or want to learn, you can still learn the functional and do it. I'm doing it myself. So you don't. So it's not that these people only have to do these things is not written anywhere. Team. We are trying to understand. Tell you is this backgrounds people usually go to this and then do that. But of course, you are a BTech background guy. You want to do the functional. You are always welcome. There are thousands and thousands of SAP consultants with BTech mechanical, BTech civil, BTech electrical. It's not something you have to do a BAP only. If you're not looking good for you're looking like you don't want to have a coding life, then you don't do a BAP. That's okay. You can still have hundreds of modules, hundreds of other things, like out of them SAP functional modules are some. Okay. Then next we move on to technical, and in the technical you have something like you see business development and integration. So where you will see this the CSIT guys can do the development. Then you have analytics where you can have the bad data or dashboarding preparation background. or then you will have SAP system, DB, security performance, any of the system setup active experience of you can learn, or else you can learn in SAP. Basically, I'll tell you, team, you can learn any module if you're interested. Okay, that's the important thing. So if you see the roadmap of how to learn, right, ERP and SAP fundamentals. So before going deep into the modules, first we covered of what is ERP, why companies use it. Then you understood what is the difference between ECCS for cloud on-premise technologies, right? So the data, etc. You understood. Now the step 2 is choose your path and SAP module. So if they are in finance background, I said, right, you can do that. If you're from supply chain, you can do these modules. If you're HR this. So if you enjoy coding, you do this ABAP, STP, and so BTP and other modules. So you understood what is what, and you can pick one module, right? You understood what is SAP and what is ERP. Then you understood what is the path, how which module is good, and then you now which module is like good for you. You can decide, and then you go to the SAP navigation and user interface. You can log into SAP and you can practice, and you can use the transaction codes and you can practice. But that's third step, right? And then you can build your business process knowledge. So when you practice in the system, you will practice on a specific module, right? You can do in Procure-to-Pay or order to cash or record to report. So these processes you will learn, and then you will build a strong knowledge and process, and then you'll learn SAP steps, and then you will prepare, right, yourself. Then you get the most hands on the system, because the reason is that you will have once you enroll for any particular module, like for example, I've also covered SAP cloud training, public cloud training video. So if you enroll for that, you will get to know the high level videos of how the public cloud process runs on the procurement process, right? So and then or else you go for an SAP S/4HANA training on the supply metals management. You'll learn a lot more about there, right? So this is how what we say, you'll a lot of training and then lots of hands-on should be required, because you should be having an ease of doing the transactions by yourself, configurations by yourself, system setup. Because you are a consultant, if you train yourself as a consultant, you should be able to support end users. You should be able to help business users, right? That's why you need a lots of hands-on. Then you'll have to have your structured learning journey developed, where you will see SAP offers very guided learning journeys for many roles and products. So you'll have that guided learning journey you can plan. For example, you see 5 to 7 hours per week and stick consistent, because the reason is consistency is the key, guys. You learn, you practice, you have a hands on, then you remember. If you just read the PPT and leave it, you'll forget it. So you read it, you understand what is written in it, you go to SAP, you do the transactions, you practice hands-on a lot in the SAP system, then you remember, okay, this is what it is and this is how we do it. Okay. So that's the structured approach you should have. And the next step is where you will validate knowledge with projects and certification. Of course, when you learn SAP, of course, in any module, maybe a procurement, SAP MM, or in sales, SAP SD, or SAP finance, SAP warehouse, etc., anything, or SAP BTP, or SAP coding. So then comes the next part is you validate your knowledge with projects and certification. So as I start with small end-to-end scenarios such as mini order to cash cycle or procure to pay cycle in sandbox. Sandboxes are basically the test systems which we have used in the practice also, right? That's also called a sandbox. So you configure your document types, you configure your setups, you will put deepen your understanding on the portfolios, right? So you get a project by any chance, if you anyone gives an opportunity with the job or internship, and then you enhance your skills, right, with the business requirements. And then you can on later stage you can also go for certification. SAP offers certification on every process, both in on-premise and cloud. I repeat, both in on-premise and cloud. So in this phase, you can have the certification. You can prepare for the official SAP certification, where you need to write a proctor-based exam, and where you will see the questions coming up or the scenarios coming up, which you need to answer for. And then based on the passing score, SAP will provide a certification to you stating you are a certified consultant ready for implementations or support projects. So that's more important as well for you to understand. I would say that the steps wise, if you start your career, right, if I just will go back and show you, if you see, learn what is ERP, which you have done already, right, fundamentals of SAP. Then you choose your path, it's up to you. Now we have told you of, now I've given a background of what is what, right? And then you will have the SAP navigation. So you pick the module and then you navigate, you build business process knowledge, and then you have a hands on in the system, right? And then you will have the structured learning journey defined by yourself based on, because you need not to do any defining when the SAP learning journey itself is defined in such a way that you will have a structure of learning. Whoever the trainer trains, be it SAP trainers, right? So basically, even from ZaranTech, we have the trainers for all the modules where you will see that it's a structured approach we follow, because that's how SAP training has to be across the world, so that the right amount of knowledge will be imparted. So once you learn, you can have a mini projects you can learn, and then you can get started with certifications as well, right? And there are official SAP learning platforms as well, where you see SAP offers with free and premium self-paced courses, learning journeys, and role-based content to prepare for certification. And then even SAP has an free paid as well, of course. And then you will have free SAP online courses, community tutorials with explained navigations, etc. So there are lots of options from SAP perspective that you have specifically that you can, I would say, that you can use. There are lots of SAP learning ways that SAP provides. There is a free source tool from free learning tool from SAP. So that's something you can learn in this thing also. SAP learning itself, the tool you can go. Okay, and SAP communities you can go, and there you can use, and self-paced learning also you can use. Okay. So that's good. Learning Hub is what we call Learning Hub, but I think SAP Learning Hub will be usually paid. But SAP Learning Hub Student Edition, it will be the best way if you're a student, so that because you'll get more flexibilities with free system, etc. And there will be blocks, etc. that SAP provides. Okay, I hope you're able to understand this part. Then you'll have books and deep dive material. Yes, SAP Press publishes that lots of materials, books and structured approaches where you can have a good learning experience. There are lots of authors who wrote books which SAP approved and published by the right, which you can use as a learning resource material. And from a practical tip perspective, right, what we say is to start with one clear path. You decide your journey. You want to be a functional consultant or a technical consultant. If you enjoy coding, go to the technical. And if you enjoy talking business, developing business processes for companies, so you go to functional. Or you like analytics, you go to analytics, right? It's up to you. So now once you have taken one module or area, you avoid jumping across too many topics at once. Just avoid it. Don't pick anything else. Start with only one module. Don't go for 2 3 modules at all, I would say. Okay. Always link what you see on screen to your underlying business process and data flow. This is very important. I told you something about procurement. I tell you every field of SAP talks a lot about business. So you have an SAP screen which talks about SAP delivery date, then how it's calculated, why it comes, where it comes from. So how do you determine this? What is the what it implies to business, right? That's very important. So whatever you see in SAP screen is just not a technical field that looks to you where you will update a value for time being. It will have an implication. It will have an implication on underlying business reason. Okay. Then focus on hands-on practice for week one, from week one. So the more you practice, the more you practice, the more you see SAP screen, the more you will be. Because being a technology consultant, you should be very, very good at technology. You talk the technology you come as a background with. Okay. So even if it's basic navigation, simple transaction, here you go, you move, you click this, you click that, or you field this up, this field have this functionality. So you see that the biggest advantage in that is that you will remember things when there is an actual client requirement comes, you will be able to answer them easily. Okay. And then focus is something on the hands-on is very much required. Then you join SAP communities, follow experienced consultants to stay updated on changes with new features on S4, new cloud offerings. That's something you can learn do later a bit, like you come join a community, you have an issue that they'll help with, or you go any issues that you get when you practice, you just Google it directly. There are already lots and lots of consultants who have already offered solutions to these problems in the communities. So you need not to worry. You can Google it if you're stuck anywhere, anything that SAP will give, the community will help you there. Then treat SAP as a long-term career path. Mastering it makes consistent practice over months, not days. Even I would say not days or months. It takes years together to master it. So I would tell you there is an experienced consultant like me of 10 15 years of experience. I'm not a master. I'm an SAP consultant or an SAP expert myself. The reason is you are not a master until you have thorough years and years of experience. So it's not easy to start with, but it's very good to understand and proceed with, I would say. So SAP learning needs consistency, new tools, new technologies, SAP changing very regularly. So all of this is something that you have to understand and do it. So I would prefer to say that you have to be on top of things to learn well. Okay, so you have to be very consistent in learnings, so which you can use with. Okay, so this is overall concept or the practical tips for beginners when you start with. Okay, so with this said, we are done with the course of SAP beginners team. So am very happy to be part of your SAP learning journey or the initial kickoff of your SAP learning. So stay with Zaran, learn with Zaran, develop with Zaran, and grow with Zaran in your life with SAP or SAP learning journey. So we would always be happy to help you to learn to teach you any specific need that you have with. So because Jaran is a very professional organization where we would try to be very professional on time and then in and bring up the topmost quality of trainings that we want to offer to you. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and effort in going through this course. With this said, we are signing off with this course. Thank you very much. Have a happy learning and happy and successful career ahead. Thank you, team. Bye.
Hey there! Want to learn SAP and start your career in the SAP world? Our SAP for Beginners course is here to help. You can learn at your own pace on our platform. In this course, you'll learn all about SAP. It's a popular business software that helps companies manage their daily work, data, and business processes. Our course covers everything you need to know, from basic concepts to important SAP functions. It's designed by experts to make learning easy and simple. Your trainers are experienced professionals who have worked with SAP for many years. They're here to guide you and help answer your questions. And don't just take our word for it. Our learners enjoy the course and find the training very useful. People from different backgrounds have used this course to build SAP knowledge and improve their career opportunities. Best part? It is budget-friendly. This great chance to learn SAP is available at an affordable price. Ready to start your SAP journey? Enroll in our course today. And for more details, visit ZaranTech website.